Chapter 175. Stop pretending to be dead. Chu Tian grabbed the little fellow's tail. Find the queen bee's position. The little fellow let out a burp. That round belly was like a balloon that deflated, instantly deflating. It jumped up like a carp and its two sparkling eyes released a glow. It was like when it heard the queen bee's name, it thought of something delicious. Damn master. Since it was born, it had never had a full meal. Was it easy to fill its stomach for the first time? It did not even have time to think about it before its master said it was hungry again. Chu Tian rubbed his chin, and his eyes revealed a trace of surprise. The little fellow seemed to have grown a bit fatter. The little fox had indeed grown a bit fatter. The amount of energy it drank was enough to make a true soul realm expert explode 10-8 times. So, even with the little fox's appetite, it was still a bit hard to eat. It seemed like this trial was very beneficial to the little fox. Chu Tian did not want to waste any time. This was because what attracted people to the trial space was not the fortuitous encounters and treasures. This was because after Chu Tian created Miracle Commerce, he had more money in his hands and normal treasures were not hard to obtain. The trial tower's ultimate hidden treasure, the ancient unsolvable question, as well as the secret to surpassing life and death was not normal, so it attracted Chu Tian even more. The queen bee. Since it was on the way, he might as well take care of it. As long as he did not waste too much time, Chu Tian did not mind taking some benefits. After the little fox was thrown to the ground, it immediately locked onto a direction and brought the 7 of them to quickly rush over. The little fox was clearly more agile than before. It moved several dozen meters in an instant, using its strange movement technique. There was only a gray mist in the air, and it appeared several hundred meters away. In this kind of situation, even if Chu Tian opened his mind's eye, he could not catch the little fellow's movements, because it was too fast. With the little fox's current escaping ability, even if it met an expert like Chu Xinghe, it could at least escape unscathed. No matter what the little fellow's battle strength was, just its speed and agility was enough for it to complete its scouting mission. The structure of the beehive was extremely complex, even more so than the giant's labyrinth itself. Chu Tian's map couldn't possibly be so detailed as to mark the location of the giant hive. In fact, the giant hive itself was a hidden map. If one didn't come to this place, the map wouldn't even show it. Since it was a hidden map, there should be hidden rewards. Where is this? They're all big worm eggs, so disgusting. When they walked into the new hive, everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them. The walls and floor of the entire hive were densely covered with white eggs, and there were over 10,000 of them. Every single egg was the size of a human head, smooth, round, and pure white like jade, and the outline of the larvae could be faintly seen. Right in front of them was an incomparably large insect cultivation pond. Thousands of white and fat large insects were rolling around in it. Each of the larvae was about the size of a human baby, and they emitted a series of sharp squeaking sounds that made one's scalp go numb. The surroundings were filled with busy worker bees, seemingly feeding immature larvae. The giant bee larvae are also very dangerous. These insects have a very strong energy inside them, so they can explode. It doesn't matter if it's just a few, but if hundreds or thousands of larvae explode together, the power will be very impressive. So we should try not to touch them. After the larva hive, it should be the queen bee's position. The little fox went down another floor and arrived at a completely different place. This was the lowest level of the hive. Compared to the first few layers that extended in all directions, the space at the lowest level was very spacious. Also, there was no sticky secretion like the other hives. On the contrary, it was clean and tidy, as if it was made of an extremely hard dark gold wax. Even a normal weapon wouldn't be able to leave a mark on it. It was just like a mysterious underground palace. At the very front of the queen bee's hall, there was a high platform made from beeswax. It was shaped like a flower and there was a giant white and fat queen bee lying on it, as if it was sleeping. 2 mountain-like behemoths stood at the side. Their entire bodies were pitch black, as if they were forged from refined iron. They gave off an invulnerable metallic feeling. They were more than 6 meters tall, and their bodies were sturdy and sturdy. Their 4 sickle-like blades were emitting a faint, cold light. 2 queen bees? The two largest guardian bees were naturally the so-called queen bees. In addition to the two bee queen level guard bees, there were dozens of strong male bees in the hall. These ordinary guard bees were actually miniature versions of the bee queen. But even though they were miniature, they were still more than 4 meters tall, much larger than a human. These male bees were the most loyal guards of the queen bee. Especially the two queen bee existences, even the illustrious Soul Realm Yun Yao was not their match. Like this, it was much harder to kill the queen bee. The queen bee hasn't discovered our invasion yet, Chu Tian ordered. First seal the entrance. Lin Mu nodded and pressed both of his hands on the ground. Cyan-colored elemental energy bloomed, and a layer of tree roots pierced through the solid beeswax floor. Slowly, the roots grew and intertwined with each other, finally blocking the entrance. Feng Han's hands released a cold current that fell onto the thick wall of tree roots. On top of the original foundation, he added a layer of strong ice-attributed energy. If a normal worker bee touched it, they would instantly be frozen. Let's go. Everyone prepared to move forward. The surrounding guard bees were immediately alerted, and they all flapped their wings to surround them. The giant bees had very low intelligence and did not have the ability to think, so they mostly relied on instinct. When they felt the beeswax aura on their bodies, they did not immediately attack, but rather they released a signal of danger. They were probably saying, "This is a forbidden area. You are not allowed to come near, otherwise you will be killed." The thunder spirit bead flew into the air, and a strong thunder energy gathered in the bead, shooting out like a marble. The queen bee felt the energy fluctuation and immediately woke up. An invisible and strong spiritual energy fluctuation suddenly spread out in all directions, sweeping over the 7 of them. Gee! A sharp alarm sounded. The two queen bee immediately guarded the queen bee. The bee guards all revealed their hostility. Their sickle-like blades shone with a murderous aura as they prepared to set up an impenetrable defense formation. The strong energy from the thunder spirit bead had already arrived. It was like a super elastic ball as it bounced around the guard bees. It looked like a powerful chain of lightning as it instantly attacked the several guard bees, blowing them all to pieces. Kill. Nangong Yun brought Yun Xiao, Lin Mu, and Feng Han to the front. Feng Kaidai was responsible for summoning several dozen sword chi to protect them from afar. The guard bees were stronger than the giant laborers. But when they finally reacted, several of them had already been killed. Even if they did not fear death, with this small number, they could not stop everyone. The surroundings were filled with noise. The queen bee was controlling the swarm of bees to come to his rescue, so the hundreds and thousands of giant bees would soon charge in. This was also the reason why Chu Tian had sealed the entrance, but this was only a temporary measure. It wouldn't stop them for long. Only by taking care of the queen bee would he be able to completely eliminate the threat. Flickering flame slash. Several crisscrossing sword glows flew through the air. Several guard bees were cut in half as they fell to the ground. The guard bees saw that they had been completely annihilated, and a terrifying killing intent filled the area. The two silent queen bee jumped out and like black lightning, they flew across the ground at a speed hard to see with the naked eye. Those dangerous scythes released a cold glow as they slashed at Chu Tian from different angles. Too fast. Their killing intent was very strong. If he was hit by the queen bee, his starlight immortal body would be useless and he would be cut into pieces. Chu Tian did not dare to easily block it. He immediately used his mind's eye to find a flaw, and using his hyperfocus ability, he slid forward. The blade brushed past him. There were several deep blade marks on the ground that were still releasing black smoke. The queen bee's weapon was poisonous. The two queen bee quickly turned around in the air. Their foresights opened and a large amount of blade chi fell down like a wild storm. Yun Xiao had only blocked a single blade chi when he was forced back several steps. This queen bee actually knows a fucking overbearing blade art. Block them. I'll kill the queen bee. Chu Tian's body was covered in starlight as he raised his treasure sword that was covered in blue flames. He ignored the queen bee and charged at the queen bee. The air in front of him slightly twisted. An invisible energy was released. It was spiritual energy. The queen bee had used her spiritual energy and turned it into pure energy. This energy was hard to see with the naked eye and could only be seen with the mind's eye. The queen bee was trying to use her spiritual energy to block Chu Tian from a safe area, or to kill Chu Tian from a safe area. Chu Tian dodged the spiritual energy wave. The netherworld sword began to gather flames. The queen bee seemed to have realized that the mind's eye could see through invisible spiritual energy, so she simply changed her attack method. Another wave of spiritual energy exploded, but this time it did not turn into an energy wave. Instead, it gathered into densely packed needles that shot out like raindrops. Then it condensed several dozen invisible energy blades. Pa pa, pa pa pa. A strange popping sound rang out. The beeswax floor that was as hard as steel suddenly began to crack. It looked like it was splitting open by itself. Chua. Then several large cracks began to appear. Each one was several dozen meters long, and it was like it had been cut by a sharp sword chi. This was the mark of being cut by an energy blade. Everyone felt their hair stand on end, because there was no warning at all. There was no sound of breaking through the air or any change in energy. It was like it had appeared out of thin air. Was this a type of attack formed from spiritual energy? Compared to the terrifying spiritual energy of the queen bee, Yi Hen's power was just like a firefly's flame. Everyone was worried for Chu Tian. The queen bee was not an easy opponent. Could he really defeat the queen bee? So, a spiritual energy needle fell onto Chu Tian's chest. The starlight immortal body suddenly exploded and countless specks of light scattered like fireflies, but they did not disappear. The moment they exploded, they quickly gathered together, forming a blade of starlight that quickly stabbed at Chu Tian. This was mind energy? The queen bee had a strong spiritual energy, but it did not have a strong enough consciousness, so it could not form a divine sense. But even like this, spiritual energy turning into mind energy was still very terrifying. Mind energy was a kind of spiritual energy that could control matter. In theory, mind energy could control all matter. Mind energy attacks were invisible and invisible, being shot out with spiritual energy. No matter what matter it was, once the mind energy entered it, it would immediately be controlled by the queen bee's mind. This was why after Chu Tian's starlight immortal body was shattered, the starlight energy did not scatter, and instead gathered together to attack again. This was because when the spiritual energy needle stabbed into the starlight immortal body, the queen bee had infused mind energy into Chu Tian's protective starlight. Then it forcefully controlled this layer of defense and peeled off a large piece of skin. Chu Tian did not even have time to stabilize himself before the ground around him began to tremble. His mind's eye swept out. He was shocked. This is bad. The surroundings were filled with the mind energy of the queen bee. Chu Tian was not afraid of spiritual energy attacks, but he never would have thought that the queen bee would not attack him directly. Rather, it would transform the spiritual energy into mind energy, and use this kind of spiritual energy to control matter, indirectly attacking him. This queen bee's strength was much higher than what Chu Tian had expected. If it was like this, Chu Tian had no other way. Chapter 176. The mind energy was like a storm and most of the attacks missed. Wherever the queen insect attacked, it was filled with mind energy. Perhaps the queen insect did not expect to use its mind energy to kill Chu Tian. The main hall was made of a special kind of beeswax, a 1,000-year-old beeswax that was as hard as iron. This material was very special, so it could preserve the queen insect's mind energy for a long time. This meant that once the queen insect's power was released, everything in the main hall would become the queen insect's weapon, shield, and could be used as she pleased. This place had become its domain. In an instant, the 1,000-year-old beeswax that was as hard as iron instantly liquefied. The sticky beeswax was like a wave as it fell down on Chu Tian's body. This attack was about to hit Chu Tian. Chu Tian was instantly turned into a statue by the solidified beeswax. Chu Tian's mind's eye had long since seen through the energy changes, and he immediately escaped from the dangerous area. However, he didn't even have time to stand firm when on the originally flat ground, several hundred sharp thorns suddenly rose up from the ground. As hard as iron. As sharp as needles. With Chu Tian as the center, everything within a few meters had turned into a forest of spikes. When each spike rose from the ground, it was like the branches of a tree, splitting into even more spikes. The mind's eye was a kind of divine sense. Divine sense was limited, and the mind's eye's ability to see was limited. The thorns had exploded too suddenly, and the speed at which they split was too fast. Chu Tian could not completely see through this sudden attack, so he could only try to avoid being hit in the vitals, and try to pass through the forest of thorns. Who would have thought that a series of snapping sounds would ring out? Several hundred thorns flew out, and it was like a large rain of needles falling onto Chu Tian's body. All of this happened in a short period of time. Those thorns that were harder than iron, with the help of the queen insect's mind energy, it was enough to pierce through an awakened soul cultivator's protective spirit energy. When Chu Tian's back was pierced by dozens of spikes, the spikes immediately softened, turning into sinister leeches, crazily wriggling as they drilled into his wounds. This is bad. The spikes were filled with the queen insect's telekinesis. The queen insect could easily control its shape, harden and liquefy at any time. The moment it hit Chu Tian, the queen insect would control the wax to liquefy and pour it into Chu Tian's meridians, instantly sealing Chu Tian from the inside out, turning him into a wax man. This way he would definitely die. He could only give it his all. Raging flame cut. At the critical moment, the netherworld sword had already reached its peak. The netherworld ghost flame suddenly rose up and covered his body, cutting off the beeswax that was close to his body. It seeped into his body through his pores, directly burning away the beeswax that had entered his body. This method would also cause considerable damage to the user's body. Chu Tian didn't care that much. The moment the crisis was over, he didn't wait for the queen insect's next attack. Chu Tian disappeared into the forest of spikes, and a giant burning sword glow slashed through the spikes with an unstoppable force as it stabbed towards the palace. Boom! A large ball of liquefied beeswax rose into the air and condensed into a shield. The burning sword light flashed. The giant shield was directly cut in half. The smooth cut still had a blue flame burning on it. The burning sword light's might did not decrease at all as it moved forward at an indiscernible speed, slashing at the queen bug in the main hall. The queen bug did not have any close combat abilities, so Chu Tian's sure kill sword was getting closer and closer to the queen bug. At this time, Chu Tian escaped the range of the queen bug's telekinesis, but entered the range of the queen bug's spiritual energy. It was like a needle stabbing into his brain, causing him to feel a tearing pain. Chu Tian's eyes turned black. The entire world fell into darkness. When he came back to his senses, the queen bee and the others had already disappeared. Chu Tian appeared in a giant space with tens of thousands of guard bees surrounding him. They were all flapping their wings, with 4 glowing sickles in their hands. Stupid intruder. A cold and cruel voice suddenly echoed between heaven and earth. Do you think that with your weak strength, you can threaten this king's life? It had huge wings that were as thin as a cicada's, but it had a body that was similar to a human's. However, its entire head was that of an ugly and repulsive insect. Its body was more than 10 meters tall, and it stood in the middle of countless guard bees like an indomitable king. Chu Tian's lips curled into a smile. You're finally starting a spiritual battle? Weak spiritual energy. This king killing you is as easy as turning my hand. The queen bee did not have any close combat abilities, but it was an expert in spiritual attacks. It could control the entire beehive and send orders to the 100,000 giant bees, so its spiritual energy was naturally strong. This spiritual domain was several dozen times stronger than Yi Hen's. Even a true soul realm expert would find it hard to resist the queen bee's terrifying spiritual energy. Accept your death. The tens of thousands of guard bees charged at Chu Tian. Your spiritual energy is indeed strong, but in my eyes it's just a giant ball of cotton. Chu Tian's hands came together and he coldly said, I am just a small flame. An ancient and dignified aura was released. It was like a layer of black smoke soaring into the sky, instantly forming the outline of a demon god. The countless guard bees slammed into Chu Tian, and they all gave pitiful cries. Their bodies were swallowed by the black flames, finally turning into black fireballs floating in the air. The queen bee revealed a look of shock as she looked at the demon god. You're actually using your spiritual energy to ignite this king's spiritual energy. No, how is this possible? The black fireballs shot into the sky and suddenly exploded. Countless sparks scattered like fireworks. Countless guard bees were touched by the spiritual flames, and all of them screamed miserably. In the end, they turned into fireballs and exploded once again. Finally, the tens of thousands of guard bees turned into tens of thousands of fireballs. If you didn't come into direct spiritual contact with me, you would have a large chance of winning. However, from the moment our spiritual energy collided, your defeat was already decided. Now let me give you a beautiful funeral. Chu Tian gave a laugh and his hands formed several seals. Demon Flame Funeral. The queen bee gave a pitiful cry as the countless fireballs seemed to be attracted by something. They all charged at the queen bee's body. The black flame swallowed the queen bee's body and turned it to ashes. The spiritual space collapsed and he returned to the beehive palace. The queen bee's corpse was lying in front of him with its head already cut off. This slash was not Chu Tian's true attack at all. It was just to lure the queen bee into making spiritual contact. So it did not matter if this slash hit or not. Once the queen bee came into contact with Chu Tian's spiritual energy, its spiritual energy would be burned to ashes by the demon god. Even if it did not hit, it would still die. You've killed the queen bee. You have been awarded 20 trial points. Current trial points, 190. The number on the jade token continued to jump and instantly increased by 20 points. Chu Tian was puzzled. Was there a mistake? Such a powerful character was given 20 points. Was it the same difficulty as opening a magic cube? It had to be known that the reason Chu Tian could beat it was because of his ability to restrain it. Otherwise, with the queen bee's spiritual energy, even a true soul realm expert would be killed. After losing the queen bee panicked and immediately tried to escape. Nangong Yun and Yun Yao chased after it with all their strength. The 2 queen bees were killed and the 10 trial points were divided among them. Chu Tian looked around the queen bee's body and found something that looked like a golden brick. I found it. The golden brick thing was not light at all. There was a layer of golden liquid that had a fragrance that was very alluring. This is the 10,000-year-old spiritual honey. What level is this material? Level 2. Or level 3? It's still a level 2 material. But Chu Tian gently tossed the golden brick thing in the air. It is no longer an elixir, but has a bit of a holy nature. It is a half-step sacred treasure. A half-step sacred treasure. Everyone looked around the queen bee's body and saw that there were over 100 of these golden bricks. Nangong Yun, Yun Yao, and even Feng Kaidai, who was used to seeing treasures, all had round eyes. God, we're rich this time. What was the price of a half-step sacred treasure level 2 material? That was several tens of millions of gold coins. It was not something that could be bought with money. Now it was good. Large pieces, all of these high-quality materials were neatly stacked in front of them. This was a shocking amount of wealth. How do we use this thing? Use your spirit energy to melt it, and you can directly use it. Chu Tian threw the brick to Nangong Yin. This honey brick is very dense. It should be able to fill several large jars once it's melted. The first time you use this thing, it will increase your cultivation base by a lot, so everyone should give it a try. He did not finish. A series of crunching sounds entered his ears. When Chu Tian saw this, he was almost filled with rage. He saw the little fox hiding behind him without him knowing, holding a honey brick in its hand that had almost finished gnawing on it. Fuck. Chu Tian grabbed the little fox's tail and lifted it up. You bastard. You're stealing master's things again. Your butt is itchy, right? The little fox still had a small piece in its claws. It gently tossed it into its mouth, and then made a face. Its expression seemed like it was saying, "Didn't master tell everyone to give it a try? This fox is helping you test if it's poisonous or not." Chu Tian's lungs almost exploded with rage. The little fox was still not satisfied. Isn't it just one piece? I haven't even tasted it yet. How about we try another piece? In your dreams. The little fox pointed at the jade token on its neck. It used its claws to draw a circle, and then gently cut it. Chu Tian was a bit stunned. You're saying you'll exchange half of your trial points with me? The little fox nodded its head. Chu Tian rubbed his chin and thought about it for a few seconds. He felt that it was worth it. All right, then I'll give you another piece. You have to eat it sparingly, There won't be any more in the future. The little fox happily held it. This time it did not wolf it down. Rather, it stuck out its tongue and licked it like it was eating a popsicle. It had an intoxicated expression. Feng Kaidai held back her smile as she walked over. Brother Chu, forget it. Since there's so much, letting the fox eat 1 or 2 pieces isn't a problem. The little fox revealed a moved expression. A good person. This fox can only blame itself for not choosing a master. It actually chose a violent and stingy fellow. Chu Tian saw its expression and was filled with anger. Feng Kaidai was also there, so he should have kicked it to Feng Kaidai. If he had done this, then Shen Fenghe would have already gone bankrupt from eating it. Everyone found a container and immediately drank the spiritual honey. Lin Mu, Feng Han, and Yin Xiao drank a quarter and felt the spiritual energy in their bodies become so strong that they couldn't handle it. They did not dare drink anymore and quickly sat down to meditate. Chu Tian, Nangong Yin, Feng Kaidai, and Yin Yao all drank half. I'm about to break through. Nangong Yin excitedly gave a low roar. A flame soared into the sky. Her cultivation went from the peak second awakened soul layer to the triple awakened soul. Lin Mu and Feng Han also smoothly reached the triple awakened soul. Yin Xiao was the weakest, but he was still at the peak second awakened soul layer. Finally, Feng Kaidai successfully broke through her bottleneck. The 4 peak second awakened soul layer cultivators had been reborn in an instant. Even Yin Yao, who was at the 4th awakened soul layer, felt her strength increase. It really was worthy of being a precious half-step sacred grade material. This was definitely a good thing. They had never seen an elixir with such an immediate effect. It wasn't that Feng Kaidai and Yin Yao had never seen treasures of the same level, but they had never seen such an immediate effect. Chu Tian saw everyone's rapid progress, and his heart was very satisfied with this item. It really wasn't a wasted risk. When Chu Tian was prepared to use it, he was surprised to find that the queen insect's corpse had disappeared, and it had left behind a light blue crystal. Spiritual pearl? This was truly an unexpected and pleasant harvest. This kind of thing could only be found and not sought. It was a very rare item that could directly increase one's spiritual energy. Chu Tian melted the spiritual honey and the spiritual pearl together, and drank it all in one gulp. A surge of spiritual energy suddenly surged through his body, almost bursting his meridians. Chu Tian did not dare be negligent. He immediately sat down and began to refine the spiritual energy. The energy in the 10,000-year-old bee honey was not just for show. When the large amount of spiritual energy was turned into spirit energy, Chu Tian's cultivation base broke through to the peak second awakened soul layer without any suspense. It was also at this time that the pure spiritual energy in the spiritual pearl was slowly being absorbed by Chu Tian. Chu Tian could clearly feel his spiritual energy wildly increasing. Finally, it reached a critical point. An earth-shattering sound rang out. Chu Tian felt like a lamp had been lit in the depths of his sea of consciousness. An invisible light, with him as the center, broke through the limits of his body and soul, radiating in all directions. Nangong Yun said in a surprised voice, "This strength. Is it the mind's eye?" Yin Yao shook her head with a serious expression. "No. Even the mind's eye is not this strong. It seems like he has broken through to a new realm." That's right. The queen insect's spiritual energy had been absorbed by Chu Tian. After fusing it with his consciousness, it had already formed a large amount of divine sense. Now Chu Tian's divine sense had increased. It had already surpassed the hyperfocus and mind's eye realms. Now it had reached the 3rd realm, the mind's lamp. What was the mind's lamp? The mind's lamp. The divine sense lamp. Once the mind's lamp was lit, it could illuminate all living beings. With a single thought, it could shatter the souls of ghosts and demons. The mind's lamp realm's divine sense not only covered a larger area, it also had a certain killing power. In southern Xia, there were only a few people that could open the mind's eye. Chu Tian had not only opened the mind's eye with a trivial early awakened soul realm cultivation, he had also lit the mind's lamp one step further. His divine sense was something that no one in southern Xia could compare to. Chapter 177. Chu Tian wanted to rest for a bit, but there were several explosions coming from above him. Several holes appeared in the ceiling. A large number of giant bee larvae that had turned scarlet fell down, suddenly exploding and sending out waves after waves of violent energy. It was as if the bombs of a bomber were constantly falling down. Chu Tian quickly shouted. The beehive's self-destruct sequence has been activated. Quickly go. Perhaps this was the beehive's self-control. Once the queen bee was killed, the larvae would explode, destroying the intruder and the beehive, ending in mutual destruction. Chu Tian quickly put away the 10,000-year-old spiritual honey, and the group quickly left the main hall. The structure of the beehive was very complex, but it was a good thing the little fox was leading the way, allowing them to escape before the beehive completely collapsed. There were tens of thousands of giant bees flying in the sky. When they lost the queen bee's command, they became wild and began to kill each other, no longer distinguishing between friend and foe. This meant that their disguise had lost its effect, and they were attacked as soon as they came out. Chu Tian spent a lot of effort to kill his way out, finally leaving this hidden map and returning to the giant's labyrinth. This was another palace. From the map, this place was called the puppet room. Because they had passed through a hidden map, they could save at least 3/4 of the journey. Everyone looked around. There was plenty of light and it was very bright. There were several large bronze-colored treasure chests in the corner, but when they entered the labyrinth palace, the first thing they saw was not the treasure chests, but rather a row of giants standing in the center of the main hall. These giants were different from the armored giant guards. They looked more delicate and small, but that was only relatively speaking. These giants were around 15 meters tall, and their bodies were tightly packed. They were covered in large amounts of runes that sparkled with light, looking very eye-catching. Before one wave had even settled, another wave had risen. What did they encounter this time? Chu Tian carefully looked at these fellows. Although they were releasing a strong aura, there were no energy fluctuations. His eyes suddenly lit up. These aren't monsters from the trial space, there's something fishy about them. The 7 of them slowly approached the giant fellows. This result was not fake. These things did not react at all. Although they were enveloped in the light of treasures, they did not give off any sense of oppression or danger. It was as if they were inanimate objects that could not move. The 7 of them looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. Nan Gongyun's eyes swept around, and a hint of surprise flashed in her beautiful eyes. Who cares? There's a bronze chest here, give me the key. I want to open the treasure chest. A few large bronze chests were placed in the puppet chamber. It was made of plain yellow copper. It was rectangular in shape, about 2 to 3 meters long, and half the height of a person. It looked very simple and unadorned, as if it had been here for many years. Chu Tian went to study the motionless giant. Feng Kaidai, Yin Yao, and the others surrounded the treasure chest, all of them filled with anticipation and apprehension. Nan Gongyun excitedly and nervously rubbed her hands together. She held 2 exquisite copper keys in her hands, and gestured at the keyhole a few times. I'm going to open it. Open it. Yin Yao couldn't wait any longer. The moment the key was inserted into the keyhole, a suction force sucked the key in and automatically rotated once. The lines that spread around the keyhole lit up. The bronze treasure chest had been opened. Nan Gongyun forcefully pushed the chest open. This seemingly large chest was actually filled with gold, gems, and diamonds. It was dazzling and made people feel mysterious, but it was just normal jewelry. Although it was valuable to normal people, it was not enough to enter the eyes of these people. These valuable jewelry were just fillers. There were several real treasures that were placed on top of the pile. There were several thick jade slips and a golden ancient jade talisman. What is this? Nan Gongyun picked up a jade slip and looked over it. It was filled with words that she could not understand. Was this an ancient cultivation technique? It didn't seem like it. There were many pictures inside that seemed like tools for dismemberment. Trial protection talisman? Nan Gongyun saw that this talisman was different from the others. When she picked up the jade talisman, a spiritual energy filled her mind, allowing her to understand the use of this ancient talisman. The jade talisman could release a layer of defense at a critical moment. It could only be maintained for a short moment, but it could block an attack below the true soul realm. This was a life-saving item. Of course it was given to Chu Tian to use. These ancient books should be treasures from the trial space, so we need to find someone to translate them for us. Yun Yao explained, the jade talisman is a special item from the trial space, so it can't be taken out. Truly unlucky. There weren't any treasures like she had imagined. Nangong Yin opened another bronze treasure chest. What made Nangong Yin depressed was that she obtained several jade slips that she could not understand, and they were similar to the previous ones. She obtained a new storage bag. As the name suggested, it could store the things obtained from the trial space, preventing her from carrying too many spoils of war. If this thing could be taken outside, it would be a priceless treasure, but it was a pity that it was a special item from the trial space. The jade talisman and the storage bag were items from the secret realm, created by the trial space. They were not real items, so they could not be taken outside. The rewards were too little. Who told the bronze treasure chest to be the lowest level treasure chest? This bronze key was obtained from defeating the laborers. In the giant's labyrinth, the laborers were the lowest level items. Other ancient language. Chu Tian looked at the jade slips. It's a bit like the ancient language. This language is very rare and there aren't many that have been passed down, so I can only understand a part of it. It's over. Chu Tian could only understand a part of it. Then what use did these jade slips have? This isn't a cultivation technique. Chu Tian looked over the jade slips filled with diagrams. This is an ancient mechanical technique manual. Although I can't decipher it, there is someone else who can. This thing is worthless to others, but it is not low to us. After we decipher it, it will be of great help to Tong Xiaoyu. There was only one person in southern Xia that could understand it. This person was not anyone else. It was the young Miss Meng Qinggu. As long as she used her heavenly book source spirit, no matter how ancient the language was, the young miss would be able to decipher it. I understand. Chu Tian was suddenly a bit excited. He pointed at the several dozen giant metal giants in front of him. These are mechanical puppets refined by the ancient race using their refining techniques. Is it useful? Of course. As long as we find a suitable method, we can control them. Their eyes lit up. The ancient giant puppets released an aura close to the true soul realm. If they could find a way to control them, would the giant guards still be a threat? Chu Tian did not know much about mechanical techniques. This was because the mechanical technique was the predecessor of the source energy machinery technique, so it had already been eliminated in the future. In that era, even the planar spaceships had been created, so only the peak source energy machinery technique could create these large and precise products. The mechanical technique was a kind of secret technique that combined source energy arrays, using refining techniques to refine puppets or tools. From a certain point of view, the technique of refining mechanical puppets was a branch of the art of refining. This really was an eye-opener. Chu Tian used his mind's eye to look inside the giant puppets. The giant puppets were indeed refined using refining techniques. Their bodies were made of very simple materials, and although they were very large, the structure was very simple. Around their chests, there was a strange glowing object. Chu Tian jumped in front of the giant puppet's chest and hit it twice, opening its chest. Wah! He's opened the giant's chest. Chu Tian found a round crystal heart that was quietly sitting in the giant's chest. It could be taken out. As soon as Chu Tian touched this thing, the jade trial token sent a message to his mind. You've obtained the giant puppet's heart. Activating the giant puppet will consume 20 trial points. Do you want to activate it? Damn it. This thing had to be tried out. With 20 trial points, he could exchange it for 7-8 elixirs when he left the trial. Chu Tian did not hesitate. Activate. On the jade trial token, the number that was glowing quickly decreased, dropping by 20 points. The white light was released and entered the puppet's heart in his hand. Pung. Chu Tian could clearly feel the crystal heart jump. The dark golden giant puppet was activated. Its eyes suddenly lit up, and the patterns all over its body lit up. A terrifying and powerful aura spread out. Too cool. It would be great if we could bring this thing out. A giant puppet's destructive might was close to the true soul realm. If they could bring it out, Wouldn't they be able to sweep away the experts of Central State? But this was impossible. The materials needed to create this giant puppet was an astronomical figure, and it was impossible to create this many puppets in the trial space, so it had to be an illusion. Chu Tian said to the others. Activating a puppet is worth 20 trial points. That much? They were all stunned. How could they have enough to activate this thing? I have trial points. Chu Tian said without any hesitation. I'll do it. Feng Kaidai felt bad. How many trial points would this cost? 100 points is enough to exchange for a sacred herb from the trial space. Sacred herb? Chu Tian was shocked. So trial points were worth this much. Chu Tian generously waved his hand. It doesn't matter, we still have enough time. I'll help you activate the puppet and you can help me earn back my points, right? With this big fellow, we won't be in such a sorry state. Saying it like this was reasonable. Chu Tian spent 120 trial points to activate 6 giant puppets. Like this, Chu Tian only had 50 points left, but Chu Tian did not care about this consumption. There was still a long time left in the trial space. Once the 7 of them had the giant puppets, their ability to survive would increase by a large amount. We've stayed here for another 20 minutes. According to the trial space's style, the longer we stay here, the more trouble we'll encounter. Let's not waste any more time and leave. Chu Tian looked at the map and studied the route first. After entering the secret puppet room, there are several routes and each route will have many forks. Only one of them will lead to the center of the giant's labyrinth. What's the center of the giant's labyrinth? Chu Tian looked at the map and said, from the markings on the map, the center of the labyrinth is called the giant's treasure room. It should be the trial tower's most important and secret place. The treasure room. Do you even need to ask? Now that Nangongyun had obtained the giant puppets, of course she was filled with confidence. Just based on this name we should go in. Alright, we'll choose the giant's treasure room. Chu Tian had originally come for the Central State Tower's treasure room, so he put the map away. But before we reach the giant's treasure room, we'll have to pass a place called the Craftsman's Palace. There's still quite a distance. Feng Kaidai felt a bit of a headache. Let's take advantage of the fact that the monsters aren't strong enough to kill our way in. That's right, the longer we delay, the stronger the monsters will become. At that time, even if we have the powerful puppets, we might not be able to stop them. The 7 of them each held a giant heart. These giant hearts could connect the user's senses to the puppet. As long as the distance did not exceed a certain limit, they could use their consciousness to control the puppet. It was very easy to control, and they could use their thoughts to control the battle. This really was a great battle weapon. The 7 of them controlled the giant puppets to open a path in front of them. When they walked out of the puppet room into the labyrinth corridor, there was a large group of monsters in front of them. These monsters looked like knights. Every one of them wore thick and heavy armor and rode steel-clad warhorses. They held long lances in their hands and lined up in front of them in a row. There were quite a few of them. This was the posture of a charge. As expected, they had stayed in the puppet room for too long, and when they entered the corridor, a large group of monsters was already waiting for them. What are you afraid of? Kill your way in. When the large group of iron-armored knights charged forward, the 7 incomparably large puppet giants also charged forward. The iron-armored knights were around the illustrious Soul Realm. In other words, the battle strength of these knights should be around the same as the slave overseers, perhaps even a bit stronger. It was most likely because they had evolved once or twice. However, the giant puppet possessed a speed that didn't match its body size. The moment its pair of crimson fists swung out, a large number of runes containing the power of destruction appeared on its fists. With a single punch, 3 or 4 armored knights were blown into pieces. Dang dang dang. The iron-armored knights were 4-5 meters tall. The thick and large spears slammed into the giant puppet's body, and the giant puppet's steel body was covered in defensive runes. The iron-armored knight's spears could only create a few small holes and could not cause any damage at all. Haha. Yin Xiao controlled the giant puppet and stepped in the middle of the iron-armored knights, instantly gaining 6-7 trial points. This is too refreshing. You guys also have a day like this. See if your grandfather doesn't trample you to death." The 7 giant puppets blocked the iron-armored knights in front of them. It was a completely one-sided battle. The 7 people's trial points continued to rise. Chapter 178. A single iron-armored knight was worth 2 trial points. As they swept through the area, they had killed at least 100 iron knights. Just the trial points alone was a large amount of 200 points, and Chu Tian had obtained over 50 points. In terms of total, they had earned back the cost of activating the puppets. The only regretful thing was that the Iron Knights did not drop too many spoils of war. Most of them were materials, rare metals, and etc. These things were very precious, but it was not impossible to buy them outside. If we continue at this speed, we'll all be rich. In theory, earning back 10 times the trial points isn't strange at all. Everyone was filled with excitement. But this was only in theory. The trial space's environment was constantly worsening. The current giant puppets could move around freely, but that did not mean that in 5 or 10 hours, they would be able to easily defeat a group of monsters. So time was money. Where are the Iron Knights? Why are they all gone? This old lady hasn't fought to her heart's content yet. Everyone had a look of high morale. Killing one would earn 1 or 2 points, and killing a few would earn several elixirs. Where else could they find such a good thing? When everyone was prepared to go on a killing spree, they found that the Iron Knights they met on the road did not attack at all. Instead, when they saw the 7 of them, they immediately turned around and ran away. Everyone was forced to change from passively attacking to actively chasing after them. This greatly reduced their hunting efficiency. Chu Tian gave a sigh. The trial designer is not an idiot. They would not let people farm points endlessly, otherwise there would be no meaning to the trial. Let's go. Don't be greedy for the trial points. It's more important for us to go to the treasury. Yun Xiao and Nangongyan gave a sigh. What bad luck. It was a bit of a pity. They had finally managed to control the giant puppet and valiantly wanted to vent their anger, but they found that there was a limit to killing monsters. How could they not be depressed? The giant's labyrinth was connected to a palace, and without a map, it was impossible for them to reach the main palace's treasury. With the giant puppet in hand, they could go on a killing spree in the side palace and obtain large amounts of trial points. But Chu Tian did not want to do this. Time was precious. Instead of wasting so much time in the side halls, it would be better to directly enter the main hall. With the trial space's design, the main hall would definitely be the place with the most treasures. Since that was the case, there was no need to waste time in the side halls. While he still had a decent amount of fighting strength, he could directly rush to the main hall. After all, 6 hours had passed since the trial started. Chu Tian brought the 6 of them to destroy many strange monsters. Just Chu Tian alone was able to obtain around 80 to 90 trial points, as well as a large amount of materials and spoils of war. There was an exit in front. They had arrived at the Craftsman Palace. When the brand new main hall appeared before their eyes, everyone was instantly shocked. This hall's scale was unprecedented, equivalent to 4 or 5 central state plazas put together. There were giant furnaces everywhere, and a group of 30-meter-tall giants were currently brandishing iron hammers to forge weapons and armor. The giant craftsmen were different from the giant guards. Their bodies were shorter than the giant guards by a large amount, and they did not wear any armor, revealing their black granite-like skin. Even their beards and hair were filled with a sturdy texture, looking like they were made of stone. Every single one of them was wearing shorts, and the bulging muscles on their bodies were like hills. The incomparably huge hammers in their hands were flickering with red runes, and they were constantly spewing hot air. Every time the hammers smashed down, the iron embryo would shine red, and at the same time, a large amount of sparks would fly. The entire hall was filled with giant blacksmiths. They had a fiery look on their faces. They're all giants. Yin Xiao muttered in his heart. Boss, there seem to be a lot of them. Should we fight them? Chu Tian estimated the distance with his eyes. This was a bit troublesome. The giant puppets were too flamboyant, so it was impossible for them to silently sneak in. So they could not pass through the palace without killing over 100 giants. But was killing over 100 giants easy? He did not know how strong these giants were compared to the giant guards. But they were not weak no matter what. There's no other way. Chu Tian made his decision, we'll fight. This was the only way to the main palace and there were no secret paths or paths to choose from. So they had to fight this battle, but they needed to carefully think about how to fight. We'll lure the giants into the labyrinth and split them up. We'll reduce the pressure and then we'll defeat them one by one. Chu Tian quickly thought of a plan. Nangong, you're in charge of luring them out. We'll hide in the nearest fork and wait for orders. After Nangong leads a group of giants away, we'll go into the main palace and kill the rest. All right. Everyone prepared themselves. Nangong Yin controlled the puppet and rushed out of the passage, rushing towards the nearest giant who was forging a weapon. The giant had just raised its head. An iron fist slammed into its face. The runes on the puppet's iron fist began to glow. It was like a violent explosion as the giant fell to the ground. Go die. Nangong Yin raised the puppet's arms and wildly hammered it. Then she jumped up and stomped down twice. The giant did not even know what happened before its head exploded. You've killed the giant craftsman. You have obtained 5 trial points. Current trial points, 55. As soon as Nangong Yin smashed the giant's head, a prompt came from the trial jade token. Killing a giant would give her 5 trial points, but Nangong Yin was not too happy about it. This was because the more trial points she obtained, the more powerful the giant was. Intruders. Kill. Kill. The other giants angrily roared as they charged forward with their red-hot giant hammers. Mother! This scene was too terrifying. Imagine over 100 angry naked men charging forward. How could they not feel their blood run cold? If they were caught by these naked men, wouldn't the consequences be unimaginable? Nangong Yun hurriedly jumped onto the giant puppet's shoulder, and the giant puppet immediately ran into the tunnel. More than 100 hammer-wielding naked men chased after it. Their speed was much faster than the giant guards, but compared to the giant puppet, it was still slightly lacking. They're gone. Quickly. Hurry. Nangong Yin led away most of the giants and Chu Tian's group of 6 returned to the passage, entering the craftsman's palace again. Chu Tian's plan was very good because with Nangong Yin's lead, most of the giants in the giant's palace had been taken away, leaving only a small half behind. Hurry. Kill them. Yes. Their blood began to boil as they charged forward. The giant craftsmen were very strong and in terms of destructive power, they had reached the peak of the illustrious Soul Realm. Compared to the giant guards, they were still weaker. There were over 100 giants in the palace, but now that Nangong Yun had led away over 60 of them, Chu Tian's group of 6 had to deal with 5-6 each. Although it was a bit difficult, there was still hope. You shameless exhibitionists. Yin Xiao charged forward with a roar. Eat my fist first. Pung. The giant puppet's iron fist sent a giant craftsman flying. The others quickly followed suit. Before the other giants could come close, they had already killed 4-5 of them. Then they fell into a bitter battle. Dang. Feng Katie's puppet was hit by a hammer. That burning hammer slammed into the armor, creating a dent in Feng Katie's back. The surrounding area was burnt black. Damn. Although she knew that the giant puppet could not be brought out, seeing the giant puppet injured still made Feng Katie's heart ache. The giant craftsman's hammer was not only destructive, it also contained a strong fire-attributed energy. With a single strike of the hammer, normal steel would turn into molten iron. The 40 craftsmen were not weak, but compared to the giant puppets, they were still lacking. The most important thing was that the monsters created by the trial space were all fake. All the monsters here seemed to have a problem with their intelligence. So they did not know how to cooperate and only knew how to charge forward. How could they be a match for the 6 of them? The entire battle lasted less than 15 minutes. The 40 giants all fell down. Chu Tian had just let out a sigh of relief that he had solved the problem before Nangong Yin came back, when an angry roar suddenly came from the highest part of the hall. There's still one more. The 6 of them had just turned their heads. A blazing red hammer flew through the air. With a loud bang, it smashed into the head of Cloudy Sky's puppet. The entire head was smashed into pieces, and Cloudy Sky staggered and fell to the ground. Fuck! Which bastard hit my head off? Chu Tian did not have time to deal with this stupid fool because after the giant burning hammer spun in the air, it was as if it was attracted by a magnetic force. It quickly returned to the giant's hand. This giant craftsman was different from the others. The giant's skin was crimson and covered in cracks. What flowed through the cracks was actually red lava, as if it was the giant's blood. The air around him was warped by the scorching heat, and he looked like a huge human-shaped furnace. His beard, hair, and eyes were all red, as if they were spitting out tongues of fire. There was a strong aura that came from it. Lin Mu said in a surprised voice, "This seems like a leader." Fong Han snorted and said, "Who cares what it is? I don't believe that it can beat all 6 of us." Yin Xiao crawled up from the ground. Most of the puppet's head had been smashed to pieces, and the remaining half had melted. Luckily, the puppet did not have any weak points. As long as the controller was not hit, the puppet could still move. "Destroy it! Destroy it!" Yin Xiao shouted in exasperation. At this moment, the hall shook and Nangong Yin ran back in a very distressed manner. His body had been smashed by the hammer 4-5 times, and there were many black dents on his body that were still smoking. "Are you done yet? I can't hold on any longer. This is bad. When it rains, it pours." Chapter 179. This giant craftsman covered in flames was several times stronger than normal craftsmen, almost reaching the true soul realm. Moreover, he had a cultivation technique and a special martial art, so his battle strength could not be compared to before. "You help Nangong Yin, I'll take care of the leader." The situation was very dangerous, and they did not have time to waste. They immediately controlled the puppets to help Nangong Yin and block the other giant craftsmen. How could the burning giant let them go? As soon as they controlled the puppets to retreat, the giant charged forward with a loud roar. Chu Tian hid behind a pillar. The mind's lamp was lit and his divine sense was released. It was like an invisible but penetrating light. When one's divine sense reached the mind's lamp realm, not only did it have the ability to observe, it also had the ability to affect matter. The burning giant was covered by the mind's lamp, as if there was some kind of external force that had stopped him. The puppet took a step forward and charged forward. The burning giant was awakened, and the war hammer quickly spun. It was covered in flames and it suddenly shot out like a bolt of red lightning. Chu Tian saw through the giant's attack, and had the giant puppet dodge ahead of time. The giant hammer missed and slammed into its back, creating a long mark on the ground. The terrifying heat created a long ditch that was filled with molten rock. The puppet took the opportunity to leap up and launch an attack. The collision of the 2 incomparably large fellows was truly like a collision between 2 mountains. The giant was caught off guard and was pushed back 2 steps. The puppet's fists were like cannonballs as it fiercely hammered the giant's chest. When the 2 dark golden fists hit the burning giant's chest, the annihilation runes on the puppet's arms lit up and released a terrifying destructive might. The giant's chest caved in, and the 30-meter-tall giant body was hit by a powerful shockwave, slamming into a pillar. Hong! The pillar collapsed with a loud rumble. This was a good chance for the puppet to chase, but the giant burning hammer spun in the air and slashed at Chu Tian's back. The mind's lamp's divine sense was stronger than the mind's eye. Although the mind's lamp was not as sharp as the mind's eye, its ability to control a large area far surpassed the mind's eye. Chu Tian felt the giant hammer fly back, but the body of the puppet was not his, after all, so it could not use the power of the microscopic to the extreme, nor could it wield the hammer freely like his own body. Chu Tian could only barely dodge to the side, and the giant hammer brushed past his shoulder, leaving behind a burn mark. The burning giant took the opportunity to stand up and catch the hammer with a bang. The hammer returned to his hand. The moment the hammer returned to its hand, its aura instantly increased by several times. That pair of eyes spewed out flames of anger as it charged forward with earth-shattering steps, smashing the puppet's head with its hammer. Chu Tian knew the power of this giant. If this hammer hit, the puppet giant would be completely crippled. Under Chu Tian's control, the puppet immediately retreated to avoid the heavy blow. The giant hammer swung down heavily from its chest, unexpectedly erupted with a scorching power that ignited the air. Like a fire dragon descending from the sky, it crashed headfirst into the sturdy floor. The puppet's legs turned soft, and its body fell into the air. It fell into a large pool of burning red magma. The pure power of the giant's hammer wasn't much, but it could produce a terrifying energy wave that instantly melted a large area of the ground into liquid. It was a good thing the puppet was made of high-density metal. If it was a normal being with a flesh and blood body, even if it was a true soul realm expert, if they fell into a pool of several thousand degrees hot magma, they would instantly die. The puppet quickly flipped back and escaped from the pool of magma. Although it was made of high-density metal, staying in the magma for a long time would cause a large amount of damage to the puppet's body. If an important part of the puppet melted, the entire puppet would be crippled. The burning giant raised its hammer again and attacked Chu Tian's puppet again. Wherever the sledgehammer passed, the air was set ablaze. It was as if a giant was holding a flaming dragon in his hand and was crazily smashing it at a puppet giant. It hit the ground. It instantly created a large pool of magma. It hit the giant pillar. It instantly melted the giant pillar. Chu Tian, who was far away, could also feel the terrifying and scorching aura. If Chu Tian hadn't been using his divine sense to monitor the overall situation, using his well-practiced technique and minute subtlety to carefully control the puppet, he would have been defeated in just a few rounds. The burning giant swung its hammer once again, turning the ground into a large pool of magma. Enough! Chu Tian controlled the puppet to not retreat, but rather charge forward. It suddenly stepped on the giant's hammer, not letting the giant raise the hammer. The annihilation iron fist slammed into the giant's right shoulder. The giant's shoulder was shattered. Chu Tian controlled the puppet to raise its arm, and then sent out a chop. With a terrifying cracking sound, the giant's right arm was cut off. He raised his leg and kicked out. The giant was sent flying again. How are you going to fight me without your hammer? Chu Tian controlled the puppet to pick up the severed arm and throw it far away. Stepping on the magma, he charged out of the pit and chased after the giant with a terrifying strength. The giant did not even have time to stand up before the puppet grabbed him and lifted him up, smashing him into another pillar. Having lost its right arm, it had lost its hammer. The giant's battle strength had plummeted. How could it still be Chu Tian's match in this situation? Roar, roar, roar! The burning giant roared 3 times. Its body was covered in flames and countless destructive runes were released from its body. Self-destruction? Chu Tian's divine sense was constantly checking the situation inside the giant's body. The giant was condensing its energy into a single point and adding in the runes that appeared. The giant knew that it could not win, so it chose to destroy itself. Chu Tian quickly controlled the puppet to turn around and pick up a broken pillar. It was like a giant stick that weighed several dozen tons. The mind's lamp was suddenly released. His divine sense covered everyone. A voice sounded in everyone's mind at the same time. Get out of the way! This fellow is going to explode. The cracks on the burning giant's body became more and more serious. Large amounts of magma and flames began to spew out, almost ready to explode. Fuck you! Chu Tian used the pillar as a stick to hit the giant's body. The 30-meter-tall giant was violently attacked, and was like a ball being hit by a wooden stick as it flew towards a group of giant craftsmen. Nangong Yun controlled the puppet to kick the giant in the air. Let me help you. This kick landed on the giant's abdomen, and the giant was sent flying again, falling in the middle of the group of giant craftsmen. Quickly run! Everyone threw themselves to the side and lay down. Hong! A destructive energy filled the hall, and a sea of flames covered most of the hall. At least 30 giant craftsmen were blown to pieces. Killed the raging flame divine craftsman. You have been awarded 30 trial points. Killed the giant craftsman. You have been awarded 4 trial points. Killed the giant craftsman. You have been awarded 4 trial points. Chu Tian found that his trial points were slowly increasing, and he had instantly obtained over 100 points. A giant craftsman should have been awarded 5 trial points, but because of Nangong Yun's kick, the trial tower had determined that Nangong Yun had contributed in killing the giants, so she was given 1 trial point to each giant craftsman. This is great! Yin Xiao let out a loud cry. They had instantly killed most of the giants. Was there anything more satisfying than this? The entire craftsman palace, A divine craftsman giant and over 100 giant craftsmen had actually been completely destroyed by 7 people. In terms of battle strength, the puppet was not much stronger than the giants, but it was still able to achieve this kind of glorious victory. This was not an easy matter at all. Clear out the craftsman palace. You have been awarded 30 trial points. Everyone received a reward at the same time. This was the extra trial points for killing the giants. Because of the trial tower's design, completely destroying the craftsman palace was an impossible task. If someone could actually complete this task, naturally they would receive extra trial points. Chu Tian had solved the cube puzzle at the beginning and obtained over 100 points, completing this impossible task. That was why the 7 of them had enough capital to activate all these giant puppets. It was because there were so many giant puppets and because they had set their goal from the beginning that they did not go to the other treasure halls and directly headed to the main hall. That was why they were able to reach the craftsman palace in the shortest amount of time. The giant craftsmen had not been strengthened enough. Otherwise, even if they had 7 giant puppets, they would not have been able to pass through here, not to mention clearing out the entire craftsman palace. There was no doubt about it. This was a glorious victory. Chu Tian looked at his trial points and found that he had over 284 points. This was almost enough to break the Central State City record. Even if Chu Tian was eliminated by the trial tower, he would still be the person with the highest trial points in history. Less than 8 hours had passed in the trial. Chu Tian stood up with a face covered in dust. The flames in the main hall gradually dissipated, and the hot air seemed to be able to burn one's lungs. The battle had reached its peak. Is everyone all right? Nangong Yun stood up and her beautiful red hair stood up. Her beautiful face was also covered in black. Feng Kaidai, who paid attention to her image, also looked like a coal worker. We're still alive. Yin Xiao, Lin Mu, and Feng Han were together. Feng Han had condensed an ice wall that blocked the shockwave from the flames. Yin Yao did not need to worry at all. Her cultivation base was much higher than Chu Tian's, so the shockwave from the explosion was not enough to threaten her life. Although we're fine, but... Yin Yao knit her brows and said, our puppets have suffered quite a bit of damage and their battle strength has dropped. We haven't even reached the treasure room, so this loss is a bit big. The 7 puppets had suffered different degrees of damage, but their luck was not bad. At least no matter how heavy the damage was, they could still move and would not completely collapse. Who cares? Nangong Yin impatiently said. Quickly take a look. What spoils of war are there? Yin Xiao also said. That's right. These giants are so strong, they should have left behind some spoils of war. Chu Tian walked over to the place where the divine craftsman had exploded. Chu Tian seemed to have discovered something and his eyes lit up. This fellow was hard to deal with, but he still left behind quite a few things. Chapter 180. Even a true soul realm expert could not block the might of the raging flame divine craftsman. This could be seen from the trial space's rewards. Killing a strong queen insect gave 20 trial points and killing a raging flame divine craftsman gave 30 trial points, so the raging flame divine craftsman was much stronger than the queen insect. The queen insect had dropped a spiritual treasure bead that could not be sought, so there was no reason for the raging flame divine craftsman to not drop anything. A purple key, a giant hammer with a long handle, a scarlet red jade slip, a scarlet red magic bead. These were all the spoils of war left behind by the raging inferno divine craftsman. The purple gold key seemed to be used to open the treasure chest. The scarlet jade slip was a secret manual that recorded some kind of absolute art. And the magic bead and the giant hammer were both powerful equipment. Chu Tian picked up the 2-meter-long giant hammer and felt it sink in his hand, making it hard for him to hold it. Such a heavy weapon. If he didn't use his spirit energy, it would be hard to use it. This weapon could only be used by those with great strength. The jade trial token sent a message to his head. Chu Tian nodded his head in satisfaction. Magma hammer, this is a top-grade soul weapon. This hammer was not weaker than Shinfengho's divine wind sword. Chu Tian picked up the scarlet red magic bead. Flame-avoiding bead, this is a special defensive item. It can absorb all kinds of flames and store them. allowing the wearer to not be harmed by flames. This was a strange treasure. Its value was not inferior to the magma hammer. This cultivation technique is called Strength of Magma. It seems like the Raging Flame Divine Craftsman's high-temperature technique. Chu Tian looked over the cultivation technique on the jade slip, and then gave the jade slip and hammer to Nangong Yun. These two things are suitable for you. Take them and use them. He really was worthy of being the leader, giving out this many rewards. Nangong Yun raised the 2-meter-long hammer. The shape of the hammer was cylindrical, and it was thicker than a person's waist. It was dark red in color, and it was made of metal. It was covered with bright runes, and it looked like lava was flowing on top of it. It was slowly spewing out a powerful energy. Everyone was shocked. This weapon was worth at least tens of millions of gold coins. Yun Xiao couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Big Sister was originally a very violent person, and now that she was holding this exaggerated giant hammer as a weapon, it was very fitting, but it was a bit too scary. Nangong Yun raised the heavy giant hammer and lightly waved it a few times. A strong gust of wind blew up, causing the others to not dare to come close. She laughed loudly and said, "It's enough. It was easy to use. I like it very much." Thump! The giant hammer smashed into the ground. The explosion of fiery red essence energy caused the ground within 3 meters to shatter into pieces. Everyone was caught off guard and their legs shook, almost causing them to tumble. Strong and fierce. Nangong Yun didn't mind the exaggerated shape of the hammer at all. She gently kicked the handle of the hammer with her leg, pulling it up from the ground and carrying it on her shoulder. "Thank you, boss. I finally have a weapon that fits me." Yun Yao secretly said to Yun Xiao with a serious expression, "Stay away from her in the future, do you hear me?" Yun Xiao wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. "I understand, I still want to live for a few more years." The strength of magma does not conflict with your family's cultivation technique, so I believe that you can cultivate them together. I believe that with this cultivation technique and this giant hammer, your battle strength will at least double. The weapon and cultivation technique did not suit Chu Tian, so he gave it to Nangong Yun. This could be considered making the best use of it. He had a use for the flame-avoiding bead. As for the remaining purple gold key, what use did it have? Everyone continued to search through the main hall, finding 6-7 silver keys and even a golden key. They all came from ordinary giants. The highest level treasure chest in the trial space was the gold treasure chest. Then what use did the purple gold key have? You guys take the gold and silver keys to find the treasure chests. Chu Tian shook the purple gold key. "I want to see what use this purple gold key has." The craftsman palace did not lack large amounts of gold and silver treasure chests. Because time was precious and they could not waste it, Nangong Yun immediately took the key and excitedly went to find the treasure chests. Chu Tian carefully studied the purple gold key dropped by the Raging Flame's divine craftsman. This should be a key with a special function. Chu Tian looked around the main hall, and a giant copper furnace appeared in front of him. The Raging Flame's divine craftsman came from behind this furnace. Chu Tian walked to the back of the giant furnace, and within the raging flames of the furnace, he found a glowing treasure chest. Moreover, it was purple gold in color. He found it this easily. This was a little unexpected. A new problem had arisen. The purple gold treasure chest was inside the giant's furnace, and this furnace could even melt fine iron. If Chu Tian's flesh and blood body entered it, wouldn't he be instantly burnt to a crisp? The flame-avoiding bead did not mean that it was immune to flames. There was a limit to the amount of flame energy it could absorb. The energy inside the furnace was very strong, and even true soul realm experts could not withstand it. If Chu Tian entered it, he would definitely die. Since it's a furnace used for forging, I should be able to control the flames. Chu Tian quickly found that on the walls of the furnace, there was a large secret array. It was made up of a total of 64 arrays, and a few of them could be controlled. Metal, fire, water, earth, and wind? Furnace arrays had distinct attributes. Under the combination of different attributes, the design of the furnace would change. In the process of refining different materials and weapons in the ancient times, it was through this method that the best furnace smelting plan was produced. First reduce the fire element, and then increase the wind element. The inside of the cauldron exploded with a boom, and the raging flames almost spewed out. The fire element decreased and the wind element increased. Although the temperature dropped, the wind made the flames burn even more fiercely. Streams of flames flowed through the furnace like dragons. Understood. The 64 squares represented the 64 elemental arrays inside the furnace. A portion of them were fixed and could not be changed. Chu Tian needed to change the other arrays and find the best way to reduce the furnace's flames. It did not mean that the furnace would be safer if the fire element was reduced. Sometimes it would be even worse. This was like how Chu Tian had just changed a fire element array to a wind element array, making the furnace's flames even stronger. But this was not too difficult. Chu Tian even understood the principle of the elements suppressing each other. When he grasped the source energy arrays inside the furnace, Chu Tian quickly adjusted the furnace's design, suppressing and restraining each other. The temperature inside the furnace quickly dropped, and it gradually reached a balanced state. This should be fine. The furnace was still filled with flames, making it hard for people to see what was inside. The temperature inside had already decreased by a large amount. Chu Tian took the flame-avoiding bead and walked into the sea of flames. A protective layer appeared around his body. Once the flames approached his body, they would be absorbed by the flame-avoiding bead. Chu Tian walked through the countless flames, but he did not feel any unbearable heat. However, he understood in his heart that the flame-avoiding bead could only absorb a limited amount of fire element, and he could not stay in this place for long. Gotcha! The purple gold treasure chest was opened. Chu Tian didn't even look at them as he put them away. Then he quickly left the furnace. He was completely unscathed, not even a single strand of hair was burnt. A strange square-shaped crystal. According to the Jade Trial Token, this thing was called the Treasure Room Key. A special talisman made of jade. According to the Jade Trial Token, this talisman was called the Substitute Talisman. As the name implied, it could be used to create a substitute to avoid fatal attacks. It was a special item used in the trial space and could not be taken outside. It was an ancient refining technique jade slip. According to the Jade Trial Token, this was a book that recorded a large number of ancient refining techniques. It was a priceless treasure in this era. The other two were fine. What made Chu Tian very curious was the treasure room key. Did he need this strange key to open the treasure room? But, how could he use it? Nangong Yun and the others had already returned. Everyone had a large harvest. Since this hall was a place for forging weapons, there were no medicinal herbs or special tools found in the treasure chests. Most of the chests were weapons, armors, equipment, and even materials. Most of them were high-grade soul tools, and the total number of loot was more than a dozen. Dozens of high-quality soul armaments. This was definitely not a small amount. There were not many refiners in Central State City that could refine soul equipment. The four great families did not have many high-quality soul equipment. The harvest this time was very satisfying. Everyone had already spent several dozen minutes in the Craftsman Palace. They immediately packed up their spoils and began to head towards the center of the Giant's Labyrinth, the Giant's Treasure Room. There was a long distance from the Craftsman Palace to the Giant's Treasure Room. On the way there, they had encountered many strong giant guards. Fighting them was not a good idea, so Chu Tian chose not to fight and charged forward as fast as he could. Finally, everyone used 3 hours to reach the center of the Giant's Labyrinth, which was the Giant's Treasure Room on the map. But when they arrived at the Giant's Treasure Room, everyone was in a daze. The scene of the treasure room was too different from what they had imagined. From a normal person's point of view, the treasure room should be a magnificent palace. The Giant's Treasure Room was the center of the trial space, so it should be called a wonder. But what appeared in front of them was an empty palace. Just from the area, this palace was much smaller than the Craftsman Palace. The most important thing was that there was nothing here. Other than giant mirrors, they were scattered around in a disorderly manner. Floor, walls, and ceiling. Huge mirrors were installed in various places. The mirrors were 3 meters tall and had a golden base that could be turned. The mirror surface was smooth and without a speck of dust. Each mirror was surrounded by some kind of energy that released an ancient aura. On the back of the crystal mirrors, there were mysterious patterns. It was a ferocious-looking monster with the head of a wolf and the body of a human. It wore scaled armor and held a large trident in its hand. Its blood-red eyes stared at the intruders, as if warning them not to come closer. Other than that, there was nothing else. There wasn't even a single treasure chest. What was going on? What happened to the treasure room? This was clearly a normal palace. How did it look like the core of the trial space? How did it look like a hidden 10,000-year-old mystery? Chapter 181. The main palace was completely empty and filled with a strange, deathly silent atmosphere. It was completely made of black metal, giving off a dark feeling like a mausoleum. The strangest thing was that there were layers of mirrors in all directions, and there were many of them. The mirrors reflected each other and overlapped with each other, extending endlessly. When a person stood in the center, they could see countless mirrors reflecting each other. It seemed like there was no end to them, as if one person had turned into tens of thousands of people. These several 100-meter-wide mirrors were arranged in a certain pattern, making it hard to find the exit once one entered, and making it very easy to lose one's sense of direction. The large hammer slammed into the ground with a dong sound. This is the treasure room? This is the treasure room? Every single hair. Nangongyan angrily said. We must have been tricked by the map. Perhaps we were tricked by the Trial Tower's creator. The others also had the same feeling. They had found a large amount of half-step sacred level 10,000-year spiritual honey, and the craftsman's palace had obtained a large amount of high-quality soul weapons. Everyone had worked hard to reach the center of the labyrinth, but in the end, there was nothing. There were no monsters guarding and no treasure chests appearing. How could this be justified? This was too outrageous. The map can't be wrong and the trial space's designer wouldn't be this bored. Chu Tian did not think this way. He could already feel that this arrangement was not normal. There was no reason for all these crystal mirrors to be placed here, but even he could not figure it out. Let's look around, there must be something special about it. I found it. This mirror is a bit different. Yun Xiao found a mirror that was no different from a normal mirror, but the frame was purple gold. It was unknown what material was used to make it, but it was very exquisite. It released a faint glow and there was no demonic totem on the back of the mirror. Feng Kaidai curiously touched the purple gold mirror and found a recess on the back of the mirror. The recess was square and it seemed like something could be placed in it. Everyone thought of the treasure room key at the same time. Chu Tian took out the square crystal stone from the purple gold treasure chest and compared it to it. The size was just right, so he pushed it in without thinking about it. When the crystal stone entered the recess, it instantly merged with the ancient mirror, as if it had always been in the mirror. The ancient mirror shook a few times and was filled with energy. The patterns on the surface of the purple gold frame lit up one by one. The smooth, spotless surface of the mirror suddenly condensed some kind of powerful energy wave, as if it was about to melt, and a large number of ripples appeared. Bang! There was a muffled sound. Everyone felt that they could barely open their eyes because a beam of intense light, like a beam of light cannon, shot out from the mirror and hit a pillar in the distance. A huge hole appeared on the pillar. After the beam of light pierced through the pillar, it traversed the entire hall and landed on the metal walls of the corridor. Even though it was 6 or 7 miles away, the high-energy beam of light quickly melted the walls. A large amount of boiling red liquid flowed down the walls. Nangong Yun was tongue-tied. Such strong energy. The crystal's function was to provide energy to the mirror, allowing the mirror to produce a high-energy light beam. In other words, the real key to the treasury was not the crystal, but the mirror, or more accurately, the light beam. This beam of light is so strong that it can melt a wall made of golden books. Feng Kaidai said. Could the door to the treasury be on the wall, and we need to use the mirror beam to melt the metal to get in? Impossible. When Chu Tian entered the giant's labyrinth, he had already experienced it. This trial not only tested one's strength and luck, but it also tested one's knowledge and skills. For example, the cube lock at the beginning, or the secret door to the puppet room. He believed that in the entire palace, there were many similar places. The giant's treasury was the core area of the trial, so it should be the hardest to crack. No one had even managed to crack it in 10,000 years. How could it be as simple as melting a wall with an extremely powerful light mirror? When Chu Tian was observing the terrain and thinking, a sharp cry suddenly rang out beside his ear. The mirrors around us are all smoking. The mirrors in all directions were emitting waves of black demonic mist. The wolf-headed, human-bodied demon totems behind the mirrors seemed to have been stimulated by something. They all came to life and crawled out of the mirrors one by one. Shrill, ghost-like howls suddenly filled the entire space. What the hell? The totems have all turned into demons. Monsters came out of the mirrors one by one. They had the head of a wolf and the body of a human. They had a cold expression, a lizard's tail, and bat-like wings. It was a strange-looking beast. Yin Xiao shouted. There seems to be a lot of them, what do we do? Chu Tian ordered. Nonsense. What can we do? Fight. The fiendish demon was about 3 meters tall. Demonic chi surged into the sky, and its baleful aura was overwhelming. When it completely appeared, its physical body immediately disintegrated in the air, releasing a large clump of black mist that quickly approached the group. Everyone controlled the puppets to charge forward. Hong. The iron fist, which was flashing with annihilation runes, struck a cloud of black mist, and the black mist was instantly dispersed. Did they kill one? No. It wasn't that simple. The scattered black mist gathered together and appeared on the giant puppet's chest. It turned into a giant trident that pierced through the giant puppet's chest and came out from its back. The giant puppet was nailed to the ground. The giant puppet was invulnerable, and even an illustrious soul realm cultivator would find it hard to damage it. This kind of demon had easily pierced through the puppet's body, just like piercing through paper. Foam Katie's face turned pale. My puppet can't move. Lin Mu, Fong Han, and Yin Xiao wanted to help, but it was useless. After these demons turned into black mist, their bodies were completely vaporized. No matter how strong the attacks hit them, they would just pass through their bodies. 7-8 monsters charged forward. The entire giant puppet had been torn to pieces. In another direction, the demon turned into a bow and shot out an arrow. This arrow did not make a sound at all, and Yin Xiao did not know how the arrow pierced through his body. The trial taker's jade tablet emitted a white light. Yin Xiao disappeared from the trial space. Yin Xiao had been eliminated. Everyone's expressions changed. This was the first time someone had been eliminated. Chu Tian said to the little fox, "They look like demons, do you have a way to restrain them?" The little fox shook its head and gestured a few times with its claws. Although they were demons, the little fox could feel that they were very special. It was as if they were protected by some kind of power, and in this state, they were immortal. No matter how strong the attack was, it would not affect them at all. Chu Tian knit his brows. How could there be invincible monsters in the trial space? This doesn't make sense. The little fox rolled its eyes, indicating that it didn't know either. This is bad. We can't stop them. Several dozen monsters charged forward, and Lin Mu's and Fong Han's puppets were destroyed. The two of them were also attacked by the monsters and were instantly eliminated from the trial space. Too fast. Not only were the demons immortal, their battle strength was very strong, and they were very fast. Before anyone could react, they had already been surrounded from all sides. Nangong Yun's face turned white seeing this. We're done for. Before her voice even fell, a large group of demons gathered together and rushed over like a black whirlwind. What should they do? Physical attacks and elemental attacks were all useless. I've got it. At this critical moment, Chu Tian suddenly had an idea. Quickly, use the light mirror to shine on it. Nangong Yin, Feng Kaidai, and Yin Yao were suddenly enlightened. That's right. It's the light mirror. Feng Kaidai was the closest to the light mirror. She rushed over, hugged the light mirror, and aimed it at a cloud of black mist. The instant the light shone on the demons, they let out shrill cries. The black mist quickly retracted, and they returned to their wolf-headed, human-bodied forms. All the transformations disappeared. Cracks appeared on the demons' bodies as they used their hands to block the light mirror. The little fox's eyes lit up and it immediately jumped up. It forcefully sucked in a breath at the demons, and the energy in the demons' bodies was like a wild horse, being sucked into the little fox's body. Like several dozen stone statues, they were all shattered. Nangong Yun swung her hammer and smashed it heavily on a demonic beast that had escaped the net. As expected, she successfully hit the monster and sent it flying, shattering it into pieces on the spot. Good. Success. The trick was on the mirror. An entire group of demons had been eliminated and no one had time to be happy. After the light passed through the monster, it landed on the mirror in front of it. It was reflected back and landed on the mirror behind it. The light was reflected 5-6 times. Ah! Foam Kaidai gave a shocked cry. She was instantly hit by the light and was sent out of the trial space. Nangong Yun loudly cursed, "Fuck! What is she doing?" She reflected the light back onto her body and killed herself. All of this happened in an instant. Foam Kaidai did not even know what happened before she was killed. Yun Yao said in a serious voice, "There are mirrors all around and the light has been reflected, so no one can predict where it is going. It is very dangerous to use the light mirror." The light released by the main mirror was reflected by several mirrors, forming a dense net of light. These light beams were very strong, and if they were touched even a little bit, they would be instantly killed. The mirrors in the main hall began to tremble. There were over 100 demons coming out. Nangong Yin was not confident in her heart. She steeled her heart and prepared to die. "I'll control the mirrors, you guys hurry up. Kill them all." The main mirror's position was very dangerous. Nangong Yin only hoped that before she was killed, she could kill this group of monsters. "Nangong, come back, there's no need for you to take the risk." Chu Tian stopped Nangong Yun's reckless actions. Since he had figured out the rules, Chu Tian had a way to deal with it. "Let me do it." Mind's lamp ignite. Divine sense release. Chu Tian instantly locked onto the positions of the demons. He used his divine sense to lock onto the primary mirror from afar. He controlled the primary mirror to turn, and a powerful beam of light shone on nearly 100 demons, instantly dispelling their protective powers. "Little fellow, it's up to you." The little fox teleported to the side a few times and quickly sucked in a large amount of energy from the demons. These spirit form demons, once they lost their protective power, they immediately became very weak. Their energy was instantly sucked dry, and they were shattered by the light mirror. "You have killed a mirror demon. You have been awarded 3 trial points." "You have killed a mirror demon. You have been awarded 3 trial points." "You have killed a mirror demon. You have been awarded 3 trial points." The number on Chu Tian's jade token kept flashing, and he instantly obtained 300 trial points. Nangong Yun shouted in a pleasantly surprised voice, "Beautifully done." Yun Yao found that most of the demons had left the mirror and gathered together. She immediately warned Chu Tian, "Be careful, there are still many of them." Around 200 demons had gathered together. From 200 of them, they had gathered into a giant figure. Nangong Yun laughed, "These idiots, don't they know that the bigger the body, the bigger the target? Boss, quickly kill it." As the light shined on it, the giant demon released large amounts of blue smoke. It was like it had been burned by a piece of iron. Although it cried out in pain, it did not return to its original form like before. It was still protected by the mysterious energy, and was in an immortal state. "What's going on?" Yin Yao was stunned. Could it be that the light mirror has lost its effect? Chu Tian said with knit brows, "It's not that the light mirror has lost its effect. It's that the demons have gathered together and condensed enough energy to resist the light mirror." Nangong Yin opened her mouth. "This is also fine? Then how should we fight it?" The newborn giant demon faced the sky and roared angrily. Countless black tentacle-like energy arms stretched out from its body. There were hundreds of them, making it look like a giant octopus. A terrifying pressure filled the air. It had already surpassed the awakened soul realm, and reached an even higher realm. Even if this monster did not have an immortal state, it was not something Chu Tian and the others could defeat. Not to mention that the light mirror had no effect on it. Chapter 182. The demons were already hard to deal with. Now that they had fused together, they had become even stronger. Even the light mirrors had lost their effect on it. How should they fight this? The countless tentacle-like energy arms of the demons began to extend wildly in all directions. The sweeping power completely spread out in the main hall. A terrifying energy began to gather on the monster's body. This is bad. It seems like it's going to use its finishing move. Chu Tian was as calm as ice as he knit his brows in thought. This monster already had an overwhelming strength. It was hard for an awakened soul cultivator to defeat it. Now that it had an undying strength, any attack had no effect on it. Even the light beams could not force it back to its original form. This monster could not be defeated. But this did not make sense. The trial space would not have problems that could not be solved. It was just that they had not found the right method to solve it. Chu Tian released his divine sense and scanned the mirrors. His heart suddenly skipped a beat, as if he had understood something. He waved his right hand. The main mirror turned several degrees. Pa! The beam of light fell on the normal mirror in front of him. After being reflected, it shot out 90 degrees, hitting the demon's body. A large amount of blue smoke came out and the giant demon screamed as it retreated a few steps. I already understand. Chu Tian could clearly see through it. He could see the mystery behind it. The beam of light shot out by the main mirror is the weakest. Every time it is reflected, its strength will increase. If it can be reflected by the other mirrors, the final strength will be enough to make it return to its original form. Nangong Yun and Yin Yao were tongue-tied. This was too difficult. The mirrors were randomly distributed. If it was just a single reflection, it could be done, but how could he control the reflection and make it hit the giant demon's body after several reflections? Chu Tian released his divine sense, covering the surrounding ancient mirrors. Help me by a bit of time. All right. Yin Yao and Nangong Yin controlled the puppets and began to run around, attracting the demon's attention. Chu Tian used his divine sense to control the copper mirrors. He was glad that the demon's body was large, so he did not need to be too precise. As long as the reflection angle was just right, it was enough. The dozens of ancient mirrors slowly changed their angles. The beam of light shot out from the main mirror and landed on the first ancient mirror. It was reflected on the second ancient mirror, and then the third ancient mirror. After repeating this process for about 10 times, the light finally became several times more dazzling. Like a high-energy laser beam, it fiercely landed on the demon's chest. The demon shrieked miserably. The black mist around its body evaporated quickly, and it was about to return to its original form. There's hope. Chu Tian laughed. Let's go. Kill him. The little fox forcefully sucked in, swallowing a small half of the spirit body demon's body. Nangong Yun and Yin Yao controlled their puppets to charge forward, sending out their divine annihilation fists, shattering the spirit demon's body. No matter how ferocious the monster was, it was now suppressed by the powerful light and surrounded by a few people. Clearly, it was unable to defend itself. With a miserable cry, it completely broke apart. You have killed the guardian of the mirror. You have received 60 trial points. Chu Tian alone obtained 60 trial points. The little fox, Nangong Yun, and Yin Yao had also participated in the battle, so they should have received quite a few trial points. The rewards alone were enough to show just how strong this monster was. There were only a few scattered demons left in the main hall. Light beam, light beam. Nangong Yun quickly shouted, illuminate them to death. Chu Tian turned the light mirror and the light beam swept across. The demons were forced back to their original forms and the little fox made a move, killing them all. Yin Yao and Nangong Yun let out a long sigh. They simply could not believe what had just happened. They could not believe that they could survive in the hands of such a terrifying monster. This was all thanks to Chu Tian. If it wasn't for Chu Tian's strong judgment and insight, not to mention the giant demon that was formed, even a normal primitive demon would have been enough to destroy an entire team. Chu Tian was too strong. Was he still human? Perhaps there was nothing in this world that could stop him. Nangong Yun's worship of Chu Tian had already reached its peak. Even the arrogant Yin Yao could not help but admire this young man. The two of them were prepared to say a few words, but who would have thought that before they could say anything? At this moment, a sharp whistling sound came from the corridor. Several golden treasured swords suddenly shot out and landed on the mirrors around Chu Tian, changing the direction of the mirrors. The angles of these mirrors had been personally changed by Chu Tian, allowing Chu Tian to control the direction of the light beam. Now that they had been messed up, it was clear that someone wanted to restrict Chu Tian's attack power. You really are lucky. From the end of the main hall, a cold laugh came. You actually found such a powerful mechanical puppet that can even defeat the demons in the main hall. But it's a good thing you came here early, otherwise we might not have been able to deal with these troublesome monsters. This is bad. Chu Xinghe's group. Because of Chu Tian, Chu Xinghe's group of 3 had formed a temporary alliance. The 3 of them were already very strong, especially Chu Xinghe. He was close to the 5th awakened soul layer, and had a very deep cultivation base. Even against a strong existence like the giant guard, he still had the ability to fight it. Now with Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlong's help, the slaves were not a threat no matter how many of them there were. The 3 of them could easily kill a large group of them, and even against a terrifying monster like the giant guard, they still had the ability to protect themselves. It was because of this. The 3 of them smoothly arrived here. When they saw Chu Tian's group controlling the light mirrors and puppets, fighting against the main hall, they were all shocked by Chu Tian's godly skills. Even Chu Xinghe could not do this. After all, not only did it require strength, it also tested one's intelligence. Yi Tianlang and Luo Xianglong wanted to sneak attack Chu Tian, but they were stopped by Chu Xinghe. The 3 of them had been watching from the side, waiting for this situation where both sides were heavily injured. Now, it was time to come out and reap the benefits. Nangongyun angrily shouted. I was worried about not having a place to find you, but I never thought that you would come out to die. Since it's like this, then have a taste of this ant's strength. After saying this, she was going to control the damaged puppets to fight. Chu Tian knit his brows. Nangong, wait. Chu Xinghe was not an idiot. On the contrary, he was very meticulous and calm. This kind of person was very hard to deal with. He had been watching from the side for a long time, so it was impossible for him to not know the puppet's battle strength. It was even more impossible for him to not understand the situation. If he wasn't 100% confident, with Chu Xinghe's personality, he would not have made a move. After this battle, Chu Tian's side had already suffered heavy losses. Even if there were a few puppets left, they would not be able to turn the situation around. The puppet's strength was close to a late awakened soul realm true soul expert, but it was heavily injured and could not display its might. Then again, the 3 of them were all experienced people. So why would they risk their lives against the puppet? They could just go around the puppet and kill Chu Tian's group. With their strength they could definitely do this. Other than that, if Chu Tian could find the puppet in the giant's labyrinth, then it was impossible for Chu Xinghe's group to not have any fortuitous encounters. So they did not have 100% confidence. The 3 of them would not come out. If they fought now, they would lose without a doubt. Yinyao had clearly thought of this problem. She understood Chu Xinghe's strength better than Chu Tian and Nangongyun. Even without Yi Tianlang and Luo Xianglong, this person alone was enough to pose a large threat to them. His inherited sword art was too strong. He would definitely be able to kill all 3 of them before they could control their puppets. Chu Tian's mind raced and he immediately had an idea. Since you have the ability to come here, that means you also have a map. I think you should know that this is the core area of the giant's labyrinth. Most of the treasures in the entire training ground are buried here. So what? Luo Xianglong coldly laughed and said, we'll first take care of you pieces of trash and then we'll search for the treasures. Chu Tian said with a taunting face, the method to open the treasures is related to the mirror and the difficulty is very high. You guys can't even open a trifling Q block, and you want to open the secret of the treasures? Isn't this just a pipe dream? This was blatant contempt. The 3 young masters' hearts were filled with rage. However, what Chu Tian said was correct. If they couldn't even open a trifling Q block, how could they open the legendary hidden treasures? Bullshit. Yi Tianlang hated Chu Tian to the bone and his killing intent sword as he roared. So what if we can't obtain the treasures? Don't even think about stalling for time. I'll take your dog life right now. Pung. A golden treasure sword appeared in front of Yi Tianlang. Yi Tianlang's face sunk. Chu Xinghe, what are you doing? Chu Xinghe ignored Yi Tianlang and coldly asked, you can open the treasures? I don't know, But if there's one of us that can open the treasures, then other than me, who else has this ability? In terms of knowledge, no one could compare to Chu Tian. Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang had an impatient look on their faces. They did not care about the bullshit treasures at all. Killing Chu Tian, crippling him, and sending him out of the trial was more worth it than the illusory treasures. Who knew if he was just speaking nonsense to stall for time? Chu Xinghe asked, "How long?" Chu Tian replied, "Around an hour is enough." Chu Xinghe, "Can't you see? This sly bastard is stalling for time." Yi Tianlang firmly opposed. "We can't fall for this. No one has been able to open the treasures since ancient times, so why do you believe he can? It's just a mob, what is there to be afraid of?" Chu Xinghe gently flicked his finger and the golden treasure sword floated around him. "My sword is enough to kill them at any time, so I'll just give them a bit of time." Chu Xinghe's confidence was not without reason. The puppets that Chu Tian relied on were not much stronger than the armored guards, not to mention that they were heavily injured and their defenses had dropped. Even if he were to fight with the 3 puppets, Chu Xinghe was confident he would not lose. Not to mention that Chu Xinghe's Imperial Dragon Transformation Sword Art was ever-changing. It was enough to kill the 3 of them. Not to mention the fact that the 3 puppets were not even at the True Soul Realm. Even if they were at the True Soul Realm, or even surpassed the True Soul Realm, what use was there in killing them? Chapter 183. Chu Tian and Chu Xinghe both had their own plans. Chu Tian needed to fight for a bit of time. As long as he had time to prepare, he might be able to create a counterattack. Chu Xinghe's strength was an undeniable fact. Even when they were in the same realm, he had almost killed Chu Tian with a single slash. That was the first time since Chu Tian came to this era that he had been heavily injured by someone in the same realm. Chu Xinghe was already this strong even when suppressing his cultivation. His true cultivation was close to the 5th awakened soul layer. This was an overwhelming advantage. As the head of the 4 young masters, even if the other 3 young masters worked together, they would not be able to defeat him. The only chance was to control the light mirror's power. If he could control the light mirror, then with the powerful light beam's power, he might be able to fight against Chu Xinghe. Chu Xinghe was a calm person, so how could he not see through Chu Tian's intentions? But he was too confident. Chu Tian would not have a chance. Several flying swords floated above Chu Tian's head. If there was even the slightest movement, he would be instantly killed. There was no chance at all. Chu Xinghe was different from Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang. He was an extreme martial artist. No matter how many grudges Chu Tian had with the Chu family, he could put them aside for now, because compared to the family grudges, he was more interested in the hidden treasures of the trial space. If he could obtain the inheritance of the hidden treasures, he would have countless riches, resources, and cultivation techniques. Chu Xinghe's strength and influence would increase by another level. To a person like Chu Xinghe, family, friendship, and family glory were all nonsense. He would not hesitate to pay any price to become stronger. What he pursued was personal strength. Chu Tian was the only one who had the ability to open the hidden treasures. Chu Xinghe had to suppress his urge to cripple him. He ignored Yi Tianlang and Luo Xianglong's opposition and gave Chu Tian an hour to try. Nangong Yun and Yin Xiao looked at each other. The atmosphere at the scene was terrifyingly heavy. Chu Tian's mediation had bought some time for the 2 of them to survive, but what use was it? It was impossible for them to defeat the other party. Could it be that they really had to open the treasure and let them have it? If that was the case, he might as well commit suicide now and get out of here. Chu Tian. What the hell are you thinking? Chu Xinghe was already strong enough. If he could obtain the treasures of the Tower of Trials, who in the central state would be able to contend against him? Chu Tian turned a blind eye to the 2's hints, and began to study the mirrors in the treasury. There were a total of more than 300 giant sperm mirrors. Although it looked messy and disorderly, it was actually distributed according to a certain pattern. Chu Tian believed that once he saw through these patterns, he would definitely be able to find a way to open the door to the treasury. What was the pattern? Light was the true key to the treasure vault. Chu Tian stood beside the main mirror and stared at the beam of light coming from the main mirror. After thinking about it for a few seconds, A light flashed in his mind. Could it be like this? Chu Tian lowered his head to look at the ground beneath him. There were many runes engraved on the floor of the main hall. These runes were very messy and there were many meaningless ancient runes and inscriptions mixed in, making it hard for people to find any meaningful information. However, Chu Tian could see it with a single glance. These runes seemed to be the elements of an array. Now that the source energy array's runes were on the ground, the use of the light mirror was clear. Light could be transmitted through the light mirror, forming an array diagram. The use of light was to complete an incomplete array. Chu Tian needed to adjust the angle of the light mirror and guide it to the correct state. After the light was refracted by the light mirror, it would form a perfect array diagram and runes. The array diagram and runes would combine to complete the array in the main hall. Using the mirror as a pen and the light as ink, this would form an inconceivable array. Light was the key to opening the door to the treasury. How to use it was a huge problem. Inconceivable, unimaginable. This method had never been heard of before. The designer of the trial space was not a simple person. This small trial field should have been used for young people to gain experience, so how could there be such a complex array? To be able to complete this kind of difficult array, one must have extraordinary attainments in the field of source energy arrays. It was almost impossible for a young person to do this. No wonder it was a 10,000-year-old problem. It was a bit challenging. I like it. Ever since Chu Tian came to this era, the problems he had encountered were too stupid. Now that he had finally encountered something that was a bit reasonable, how could he not be happy? But the more difficult it was, the higher the reward would be. Chu Tian opening the treasure vault was one thing, but obtaining the treasure was another. Chu Xinghe's group of 3 was eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. If he couldn't obtain the treasure vault, and instead gave it to these 3 wolves, then Chu Tian's loss would be too great. Then he would stake it all. Chu Tian felt the floating treasure sword and suddenly steeled his heart. With this large array, he had 30% confidence that he could kill them in one move. It all depended on who was faster. When Chu Tian adjusted the light mirrors and prepared to attack, suddenly, there was an explosion coming from the left and right side of the giant's treasure vault. There was a large group of monsters that were wildly charging over. Chu Tian knit his brows. Go block them. I can't be disturbed when I'm breaking the array. Chu Xinghe's lips curled into a cold smile. How could he not see through Chu Tian's intention? Now that Chu Tian was purposely sending them away, it was just to prepare for himself. No problem. Let him prepare. As long as I open the treasure vault, with this person's strength, how could he fight me? Now was not the time for internal strife. If the monster tide came in, both sides would be finished. Because there were 2 entrances to the treasure vault, Chu Xinghe's group of 3 guarded one while Nangong Yun's group guarded the other with their puppets. Both sides had a tacit understanding. What is Chu Tian thinking? Yun Yao's face was filled with confusion. Even if we can't obtain the treasure vault, we can't let them obtain it. Nangong Yun walked while frowning, then said, Boss definitely has his own plans. I understand him. He won't do anything that he doesn't have a bit of confidence in. That's because he doesn't understand. Yun Yao's face became serious. He must have greatly underestimated his opponent. Forget about Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang, but Chu Xinghe is definitely not someone he can fight against. Is Chu Xinghe really that strong? Let's put it this way. If I were to fight against him and Chu Xinghe goes all out, I would lose in 1 move and die in 3 moves. Nangong Yun's body trembled. Die in 3 moves? No matter what. Yun Yao was on the same level as Chu Xinghe and she had a soul-contracting weapon, the Thunder Spirit Bead, but she couldn't even block 1 move from Chu Xinghe? Just how strong was he? The battle on both sides of the corridor had already begun. Chu Tian focused all of his energy on it. There were over 300 mirrors placed around him, and there were several dozen on the walls and even the ceiling. Most of the mirrors could rotate 360 degrees. Most of the mirrors could even tilt 90 degrees. Each mirror had to be perfectly positioned, and the angle of each mirror had to be perfect. They also had to ensure that the beams of light were in the correct order, passing through each mirror at once. There could be no mistakes and no mistakes. It was so harsh that it made one's hair stand up. This was the only way to completely open the treasure vault. What kind of difficult matter was this? It wasn't something a human could do. Chu Tian did not have much time. He had to finish it in 2 hours. This meant that he had to finish it in one go. He couldn't even make a single mistake. One wrong step. That meant he had to start all over again. Did Chu Tian have the time to do this? Not to mention if Chu Xinghe would give him the time. The monsters in the trial space would quickly flood this place. They would not give Chu Tian the time. There was no room for negotiation. Either he succeeded in one go, or he wasted all his previous efforts. When Chu Tian faced the complicated and profound arrangement of the mirrors, his heart filled with a surge of hot blood. He did not have the slightest bit of fear or waver, rather he felt a burst of excitement. There was no doubt about it. This was really a question that had been left unsolved for thousands of years. Although he did not know who buried it in the trial space, but from the ancient times until now, no one had been able to solve this problem. There must be some kind of heaven-shattering secret hidden in here. Don't disappoint me. Chu Tian lit his mind's lamp. His divine sense was like a ray of light, covering all directions, covering the several hundred mirrors. The position of each mirror, the arrangement, the angle, and every detail of the main hall, all of it was clearly displayed in Chu Tian's mind. This kind of large area without any blind spots was something that the mind's eye could not do. If Chu Tian had not obtained the mind's lamp's ability, he would not have been able to accurately control the mirrors and see through the mysteries of the main hall. However, the mind's lamp had his consciousness as the core and his spirit as the oil. Although the area it covered was very large, it consumed his divine sense very quickly. Although Chu Tian's divine sense had increased, he could not light the mind's lamp for a long time. Otherwise, if his divine sense continued to be consumed, it would cause irreparable damage to him. It's starting. Chu Tian used a quarter of an hour to observe the arrangement of the mirrors. The positions and angles of the 300 mirrors were all clear to him. At this time, Chu Tian released his divine sense. The little fox let out a few surprised cries. Several mirrors that were close began to move by themselves. It was as if there was an invisible hand that was moving them. The closest mirror had finished moving. The second row of mirrors began to be moved. The third row, the fourth row, the fifth row. Chu Tian used his divine sense to precisely control the light mirrors. He made the light mirrors go from messy and disorderly states to a certain order and angle, like a constellation that was tightly packed together. This process was not easy. Although Chu Tian's divine sense had reached the mind's lamp level, it was still weak. This was a very challenging task for him. When the arrangement of the light mirror was halfway done, the light mirror suddenly stopped. Pum. The mind's lamp was extinguished. Everything fell into darkness. Chu Tian found that his divine sense was not enough. When Chu Tian fell into a difficult situation, the little fox's gem-like eyes turned, and it suddenly closed its eyes. A seal appeared on its forehead, and an invisible energy suddenly appeared in Chu Tian's body. This energy is the little fox's divine sense? Chu Tian found it a bit hard to believe. This little fellow's divine sense isn't weak. Chu Tian did not know what method the little fellow had used to share its divine sense with Chu Tian, but this energy was something Chu Tian needed. The mind's lamp lit up again and his divine sense was released again, covering the main hall and adjusting the mirrors to the best angle. The large array was complete. Chu Tian revealed a faint smile and rubbed the little fox's head. Many thanks. The little fox looked a bit tired, but it excitedly called out a few times. Quickly open the large array. This little fellow was also attracted. It was a bit impatient to see what kind of effect this never-before-seen array would have. Chu Tian nodded. Don't be anxious. We'll begin now. Chu Tian walked to the purple gold-framed main mirror. Whether it would succeed or not depended on this one move. With a wave of his right hand, the main mirror slowly adjusted its angle. A dazzling beam of light shot out and landed on the mirror in front of him. It reflected the second mirror, the third mirror. How fast was the speed of light? The entire light mirror array, the entire giant's treasure house, was lit up in an instant. That sharp beam of light was like an array master's ink. Every time it reflected the light, the thickness, the angle, it was all accurate, reaching an unbelievably harsh level. Finally, a huge octagonal three-dimensional light formation suddenly descended on the ancient training field. The runes on the ground were filled with energy and floated into the air. Countless profound runes were attracted by a gravitational force and gathered at a single point, fusing together with the light. An ancient energy appeared in the main hall. It was like an ancient power that ruled over the world, but it was also an eternal power. It contained the laws of the world, making people tremble in awe. Chapter 184. The monsters that were swarming over felt a majestic power descend upon them. It was as if they had been intimidated by something and they all retreated like a tide. Why did the monsters all disappear? Did Chu Tian succeed? Let's go take a look. Nangong Yin and Yin Yao brought the two scarred puppets back to the main hall. With a single glance, they could see countless runes shooting towards the same spot like meteors. Like a spiderweb, they finally condensed into an incomparably large door of light. It was 20 feet tall, majestic. It was a magnificent sight. Open the door to the treasure room. You have been awarded 200 trial points. The moment Chu Tian broke the light mirror array and opened the door to the treasure room, the number on the jade token in front of his chest began to rise, increasing by an entire 200 points. This was the highest reward he had received since entering the trial space. This meant that the difficulty of opening the treasure room was at least 10 times that of solving the cube's secret. Chu Tian had really succeeded. This secret that had been hidden in the central state tower for countless years had finally been solved by Chu Tian's hands. The two of them had not even entered the main hall yet. Chu Tian did not let out a sigh of relief because the real trouble had just begun. You guys quickly come in. Chu Tian saw Nangong Yun and Yin Yao come in, and immediately waved his hand at them. Who would have thought that at this moment, 3 golden lights would suddenly appear in the main hall? Be careful. Chu Tian's warning came too late. 3 golden treasured swords seemed to appear out of thin air, and instantly shot at the 3 of them. Yin Yao and Nangong Yin were shocked by the giant door, and could not react for a moment. They were pierced by the swords and disappeared in a white light. Chu Tian was also hit by the sword, but when the sword hit his body, a jade talisman on his body shattered, and turned into an energy barrier that repelled the golden sword. Chu Tian revealed a serious expression. Damn. This was really strange. Chu Xinghe did not return to the main hall, and could still summon flying swords to attack? At that time, Nangong Yin and Yin Yao were not prepared, so they were directly killed. Chu Tian had only just completed the formation, and had not had time to defend, so he was hit by the sword. Fortunately, he had a protective talisman that he had obtained from the maze, which was able to block the attack. Otherwise, Chu Tian would have been eliminated. What, are you surprised? Chu Xinghe's cold voice came from the sword floating in the air. My sword is my heart. Although I left behind 3 swords. I can observe the situation in the main hall through these 3 swords. You can only blame yourselves for being too careless. Despicable indeed. However, one had to admit that he had some skills. Chu Tian was so focused on setting up the formation that he did not notice the few swords that Chu Xinghe had left in the hall. Who knew that these swords would become Chu Xinghe's eyes? Nangong Yun's cultivation was weak and could not help much, but the puppet's strength could not be underestimated. Yin Yao's cultivation was similar to Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlong's, so she could have been a strong helper. Now, she had been killed by Chu Xinghe's sneak attack. This meant that Chu Tian had to face these 3 strong enemies alone. Ha 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 ha. The heavens are helping me. At this time, Luo Xianglong walked back with a face of pleasant surprise. He excitedly laughed into the sky. There was a legend about the Tower of Trial in Central State City. The Tower of Trial hid a powerful inheritance that was enough for a person to spend for a lifetime. Whoever could solve the 10,000-year problem of the Tower of Trial would be able to obtain this inheritance. How many years had it been? Even if people found this problem, they could not solve it. Who would have thought that it would be solved by a little brat like Chu Tian today? How could Luo Xianglong not be happy? Yi Tianlong's eyes also revealed a strong greed. As long as he could obtain the ancient treasure hidden in the Tower of Trial, it would not be in vain for him to endure this humiliation for so long. Chu Xinghe was still as silent as ice. His hand formed a sword and the 3 swords returned to his side, entering his body. When he opened his eyes, a pair of sharp, pitch-black eyes hid a strong murderous intent. Actually, compared to Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlong's joy, Chu Xinghe was more afraid, deeply afraid. Chu Xinghe had seen the entire process of Chu Tian's formation. This young man was too terrifying and his existence would become a threat sooner or later. His light could even overshadow Chu Xinghe. Chu Xinghe was insufferably arrogant. How could he tolerate the existence of a young man that was better than him? Even if he could not kill anyone in the secret realm, he could at least cripple them and ruin their future. I really don't know if I should say your luck is good or bad. Luo Xianglong recovered from his initial surprise and looked at Chu Tian with a taunting gaze. I actually have to thank the defensive jade talisman on you. If it wasn't for the fact that it blocked Chu Xinghe's attack, wouldn't it be too easy on you? You opened the door to the treasury for us, but now you have no value. Yi Tianling coldly said. Now let's settle our debts. Since it's like this, what's the point of saying so much? Chu Tian was not stupid enough to think that he could convince the 3 of them to share the treasure with him. His eyes flashed a few times and he calmly said, Do you want to come one by one or do you want to come together? Even at death's door, he still dared to be this arrogant? He was facing 3 of the Central State 4 young masters. Any one of them was a top-tier character in Central State, not to mention facing 3 of them at the same time. Since you have a big grudge, then leave it to Prince Tianlang to deal with. Many thanks. Yi Tianlang revealed a look of joy. He had waited for this chance for too long. Without another word, Yi Tianlang used his family's monster wolf transformation and turned into a man-wolf. His 4 limbs stepped on the ground. Accept your death. Chu Tian gave a cold laugh and let out a sigh of relief in his heart. Chu Xinghe had a deep mind. In truth, he did not want to share the treasure with Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang, so he deliberately said this. Otherwise, with Chu Xinghe's ability, how could he not see that Yi Tianlang would only die if he charged forward now? That's good. If they worked together. Chu Tian did not have a high chance of winning, but now he had a chance. You want to cripple me? Why don't you ask my puppet if it agrees? The puppet behind Chu Tian took a step forward and sent a punch at Yi Tianlang. Yi Tianlang was not an ordinary person. He suddenly jumped in the air and used the air as a stepping board to retreat 4-5 meters away, dodging the puppet's destructive punch. Insignificant tricks, do you think this kind of thing can stop me? Not bad. The reason the puppet could be successful in the labyrinth was because of the low intelligence of the monster. With Yi Tianlong's rich battle experience, he would not fight the puppet head-on. As long as he went around the puppet and attacked Chu Tian, it would be fine. Even if he could not beat the puppet, killing Chu Tian was as easy as flipping his hand. Who would have thought that Chu Tian would reveal a strange smile? You're wrong about this. A giant palm slapped at Yi Tianlang from behind. Yi Tianlang was shocked. A sneak attack. When he reacted, it was already too late. This palm heavily hit Yi Tianlong's body, directly shattering his protective spirit energy, and slapped him heavily in front of Chu Tian. The second puppet. This guy controlled 2 puppets. It turned out that while Chu Tian controlled his puppet to temporarily force Yi Tianlang to retreat, he released his divine sense and controlled the giant's heart left behind by Nangong Yun. At the same time, he controlled Nangong Yun's puppet to slap Yi Tianlang. How powerful was the puppet? Even if Yi Tianlang was not seriously injured to death, he temporarily lost his defense. The puppet's heart in Chu Tian's hand flashed. The puppet in front of him clenched its hands and smashed down heavily like a pendulum. Yi Tianlang roared unwillingly and directly turned into a white light and disappeared. The stray dog young master only has this much ability. Chu Tian took control of the puppets that Yin Yao had left behind. The 3 puppets stood in a row in front of him, assuming a defensive stance. Chu Xinghe was as calm as water, as if he had already guessed this result. Luo Xianglong had a look of surprise. How is this possible? He can control multiple puppets at the same time. Could his spiritual energy be split? This is the power of his divine sense. Chu Xinghe coldly said. His divine sense has already surpassed the mind's eye realm, so he can leave his body and control the puppets from afar. What? Surpassed the mind's eye realm. This was unheard of. Chu Xinghe then said, Brother Luo, do you have confidence? Luo Xianglong quickly calmed down. That trashy Tianling really can't do anything. Since it's like this, I'll do it. Chu Xinghe watched as Luo Xianglong walked out and a cold taunt flashed in his eyes. Chu Tian stood in the center of the light mirror array with the 3 puppets' hearts revolving around him. The 3 scarred puppets stood in front of him as he calmly said, Do you also want to test the strength of the puppets? Puppets? Luo Xianglong gave a proud laugh as he took out a talisman that released a mysterious power. He placed it on his body as he angrily roared, They're just toys. The talisman suddenly released a strong light. Luo Xianglong turned into a 20-meter tall giant, even larger than the giant puppets. With a single punch, one of the giant puppets was smashed to pieces. Then, with lightning speed, he kicked the other giant puppet, sending it flying to the corner of the wall. Finally, his 2 arms came out like 2 dragons coming out of the sea, directly shattering the chest of the last puppet. Wild. Ruthless. The 3 puppets walked over, but their bodies were already broken and their defensive runes were no longer effective. Luo Xianglong had used a transformation talisman to increase his battle strength by a large amount. Combined with the Luo family's terrifying close combat cultivation technique, the 3 puppets did not even have a chance to fight back as they were torn apart by Luo Xianglong. As expected, they also had some gains in the giant's labyrinth. Luo Xianglong had used the talisman to turn into a giant, increasing his battle strength by 5-6 times, reaching the true soul realm. His battle strength far surpassed the puppets. This also meant that his pure battle strength was not inferior to the puppets. The most important thing was that compared to the puppets that did not have any intelligence, Luo Xianglong had cultivation techniques and martial arts. This was definitely very terrifying. Without these toys, Luo Xianglong's voice became deep and terrifying as he roared out word by word. I'll be able to crush your bones one by one. To thank you for opening the treasure for me, my movements will be a bit faster. One of us will definitely obtain the treasure. Chu Tian watched the 3 puppets being destroyed, but he remained calm the entire time. He did not even blink, but that person will not be you. Chu Tian gently waved his hand. A beam of light shined from the main mirror. Luo Xianglong's expression changed. Could it be? He seemed to realize something and wanted to escape, but it was too late. Was there anything in this world that was faster than light? When the beam of light shined on the mirror, it was reflected 30-40 times. Finally it turned into an incomparably strong energy that slammed into the giant that Luo Xianglong had turned into. No! Luo Xianglong gave a pitiful cry as he was pushed to the end of the hall. The beam of light pierced through his chest. A white light flashed. Luo Xianglong was also sent out of the trial space. Chu Tian acted like he had done something insignificant as his eyes fell onto Chu Xinghe. His calm and gentle attitude was like he was looking at an old friend. Heavenly Sword young master, you've made 2 mistakes. The first is that you shouldn't have hurt the people by my side, and the second is that you shouldn't have sent your teammates to their deaths. Chu Xinghe coldly said, So what? Chu Tian replied, I'll personally kill you. Actually, I could have sent you out from the beginning, but I didn't do that. Instead, I let you go so that I could open this treasure. Chu Xinghe's laughter was as deep and terrifying as an owl's. Your biggest mistake is underestimating my strength. Chu Xinghe formed a sword seal. The golden sword suddenly split into 2 into 4. Finally it split into 16 swords that surrounded Chu Xinghe's body at a high speed, reaching a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. You think you can defeat me? Chu Xinghe's body slowly floated into the air. He was like a peerless sword god, his sharp eyes filled with arrogance. His cold and emotionless voice filled the hall, as sharp as a sword. I'll let you know how stupid that thought is. Chu Tian gave a laugh. I don't think so. Chapter 185. The 16 golden swords were exactly the same in terms of size, shape, and size. The edge of every single sword was smooth like a mirror and inscribed with talisman markings that were like WYRMS, and numerous monstrous sword chi surged out like a storm that was brewing. You overestimate yourself. Chu Xinghe's eyes flashed. You're just a firefly, yet you dare to compete with the sun and moon. The 16 swords that were filled with energy spread out behind him like a peacock spreading its tail. They shone with a golden light and were extremely beautiful. Then they tore through the void at a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. The moment each sword fell, they transformed into numerous waves of golden sword chi. At first glance, they were densely packed. It was as if an unstoppable storm was pressing down on them. Blade Storm. This set of ancient sword techniques was ever-changing and unpredictable. Taking someone's head from 1,000 miles away was as easy as taking something out of one's pocket. That sharp whistle seemed to be able to tear apart one's eardrums. That threatening sword chi seemed to be able to tear apart the entire space. What a terrifying attack. As expected of Chu Xinghe, his attack was as powerful as a thunderbolt. Shwa, shwa, shwa. The light rays were like threads weaving through the invisible hands, instantly forming a huge protective shield. The instant the 10,000 swords descended, it actually blocked that terrifying attack. Boom. The main hall shook. The sword chi shattered one after another and shot into the pillars of the hall, leaving deep marks on them. Do you think I'm stupid enough to help you open the treasury? Chu Tian stood in the center of the light mirror formation and scathed. He was surrounded by crisscrossing light rays. Right now, all the mirrors in the formation are under my control. No matter how powerful your sword technique is, what can you do to me? Right now, the entire space was divided into coordinates in Chu Tian's eyes. No matter where Chu Xinghe appeared, no matter where he attacked, he would be able to block an attack with 100% accuracy. Chu Tian had already controlled all the light mirrors when he was setting up the formation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to open the door to the treasury. Stubborn duck. You're just borrowing external strength. How many places can you defend at the same time? Chu Xinghe made another move. 32 Wandering Dragons formation. The instant the 16 flying swords were repelled, light flashed and turned into 32 swords. The densely packed sword images covered the entire light mirror formation, doubling the attack density. Hundreds and thousands of sword chi flew together. The scene was like a tsunami driven by a storm, bombarding a lone island in a frenzy. Dozens of dazzling rays of light shot out from the light mirror array at the same time, weaving into a crisscrossing cage that was constantly changing. No matter which angle he attacked from, he couldn't hurt Chu Tian at all. For Chu Tian, the trajectories of those light rays were hard to grasp, but he could control them as he pleased to attack or defend. He had never missed once, and the flying swords that came to attack him were all bounced off. He couldn't just passively take a beating. If one defended for too long, there would definitely be openings. Therefore, it was better to take the initiative to attack. Chu Tian waved his hand to control the main mirror. The light shot forward and bounced several times. In the blink of an eye, it rushed out of the array and turned into a spear of light. It swept across the ground, leaving a long, molten mark. Chu Xinghe dodged it in an instant. He dodged it. It was impossible for Chu Xinghe to be faster than light, unless he dodged before attacking. He was able to accurately determine the source of the attack from the countless light mirrors. This kind of insight was not something the naked eye could possess, so it was very likely that he had opened his mind's eye. So what if you have a mind's eye? Chu Tian slapped the light mirror and the light beam swept across several mirrors. The light beam split into several groups and constantly reflected in the light mirrors, turning into 4-5 concentrated attacks that shot out at the same time. If you have the ability, then dodge it. Chu Xinghe had a mind's eye, but Chu Tian also had a mind's eye. Chu Tian knew that the mind's eye's insight had its limits. Moreover, the mind's eye's specialty was to concentrate one's divine sense. It could not be like the mind's lantern that could radiate. When several light beams were shot out at the same time, even if Chu Xinghe had the mind's eye, he would not be able to see through it. Who knew that Chu Xinghe had already made preparations? Dragon Sword Shield. Those golden treasured swords stabbed into the ground in front of Chu Xinghe, forming an airtight giant shield. The moment the light beam hit it, the outer layer of the treasured swords melted. The fierce strength pushed the giant shield forward, finally piercing through with a pung sound. Countless melted swords filled the sky. Chu Xinghe was no longer behind the shield. The sword shield had bought him a bit of time, but with Chu Xinghe's cultivation base, he could safely tear it apart. 64 Roaming Dragon Sword Array. The long cry of a flood dragon filled the main hall. 64 swords reformed and floated in the air, densely packed together. He released the power of his source spirit, filling each sword with the power of a flood dragon. The 64 swords turned into 64 golden flood dragons that brandished their fangs and claws. They were agile and their might increased, no longer attacking in a straight line like before. Chu Xinghe was really hard to deal with. His strength seemed to be endless. Although his cultivation base was only at the peak 4th body refinement layer, this kind of battle strength was enough to make the older generation members of Central State City blush with shame. Chu Xinghe stood on the golden flood dragon, and was surrounded by countless golden flood dragons. His body was filled with light and his aura was like the sun in the sky. He was as dignified as a deity and his eyes were cold and terrifying. Do you think a light mirror formation can stop me? I will destroy this array, and leave the protection. I want to see if you can block a single attack from me. Chu Xinghe's voice was filled with confidence. He did not have any patience left. 63 golden flood dragons received the order, and like sharks smelling blood, they all lunged at the light mirror array. These golden flood dragons were several times more ferocious than the flying swords from before, and a weaker light beam could not even send them flying in one hit. Chu Xinghe wanted to destroy the array with brute force. Once they left the light mirror array, Chu Tian would not be able to fight against Yi Tianlang. Not to mention the head of the 4 young masters, Chu Xinghe. Chu Tian released his divine sense and controlled several light mirrors. The light mirrors were penetrated by Chu Tian's divine sense and began to tremble. Rays of light swept out in an arc and the light mirror array was filled with light. Several rays of light passed through the different mirrors and finally shot into the sky. The golden flood dragons were bombarded by the rays of light and were sent back into the air one by one. Chu Xinghe controlled them with a dark expression. The wandering flood dragons attacked again and again. Chu Tian was as stable as Mount Tai. The mine's lantern's range was reduced, and it covered an area of several dozen feet. It increased the divine sense in that area and allowed him to lock onto the position of each flood dragon, the angle and position of each mirror, the speed and attack position of each golden flood dragon. All of this was seen by Chu Tian's divine sense. He was multitasking as he controlled the light mirror array. The rays of light continued to shoot out from the array, and the beams of light continued to block the golden flood dragons, making it hard for Chu Xinghe to break through. Pung! The golden light and the golden flood dragons collided. Large amounts of golden energy exploded in the air. Each attack and collision was very shocking. It was as if even the main hall was shaking. Chu Tian's calculation ability was too terrifying, basically being able to calculate everything. Using the light mirror array's powerful and complex system, as well as the incomparable speed and accuracy of the light beams, he was able to block the several dozen raging flood dragons. The Heavenly Sword Young Master's sword art is only at this level? When Chu Xinghe heard Chu Tian's provocation, the killing intent in his eyes became even thicker. He never thought that a person that wasn't even in the illustrious soul realm would be able to last this long under the might of his Imperial Flood Dragon sword art. It had to be known. Even if it was a 5th awakened soul layer cultivator, when facing Chu Xinghe's sword array, they would not be able to last more than 10 breaths of time. But this powerful sword array could not take down this damn fellow. He was just relying on this large array. Chu Xinghe's sword, there was nothing it couldn't break and nothing it couldn't resist. How could it be restrained by an array controlled by a trivial 2nd awakened soul layer cultivator? Divine Flood Dragon Descent. Over 60 golden flood dragons soared into the sky and gathered above Chu Tian's head. Finally they all fell down at the same time, releasing an aura that was like a river flowing backwards. Could it be that he wanted to stake it all on this one throw? Chu Tian's right hand patted the main mirror beside him, and the light fell onto the surrounding mirrors. After countless refractions, it formed a large net of light that instantly blocked the falling flood dragons. Break for me! With a loud roar, the golden flood dragons were blown away one by one and returned to their original form. Chu Xinghe urged the golden flood dragon under his feet to attack. It turned into a golden light and instantly shot at Chu Tian. But halfway there, a beam of light swept over. Chu Xinghe quickly raised his sword to block it. The terrifying power directly broke the treasured sword and threw him into the air. It's my turn. The beam of light was reflected several dozen times. As the number of reflections increased, not only did it increase the power of the beam, it also allowed him to escape from Chu Xinghe's mind's eye, making it hard for him to predict. Fast. Too fast. This was still light. What in this world could be faster than light? The golden light was like a giant spear that pierced through Chu Xinghe's chest. This attack was very strong. Even with Chu Xinghe's protective spirit energy, he could not block it. His chest was pierced through like a piece of paper and his body was sent flying several dozen meters before finally falling to the ground. Was he killed? If that was the case, then the famous Chu Xinghe was just an undeserved reputation. After Chu Xinghe was pierced by the light, the golden flying swords that filled the sky did not fall. Instead, they gathered together with a surge of energy. Chu Tian's expression changed slightly. The sword in the center flashed and turned into Chu Xinghe's appearance. He wore a white jade crown on his head and his green robes fluttered in the wind. His hands formed a sword seal and his posture was cold and arrogant. It was as if a sword immortal had descended to the world. That sharp light could not be looked at directly. Chu Tian looked at Chu Xinghe who had just been hit. Where was Chu Xinghe's body? All that was left was a broken sword. A diversionary tactic? He fell into a trap? The flood dragon's attack was just a feint. Chu Xinghe took advantage of the fact that Chu Tian's attention was diverted and instantly swapped places with the flood dragon under his feet. He used some secret technique to turn himself into the golden flood dragon sword, and the golden flood dragon sword into his appearance. When the flood dragon's attack failed, Chu Xinghe used the golden flood dragon under his feet to feint an attack. His goal was to send himself to Chu Tian's side. Chu Tian concentrated his energy on the substitute. As for a mere flying sword, he casually dealt with it and did not unleash a thunderous attack. At this time, Chu Xinghe was already above Chu Tian. Chu Xinghe had been using his mind's eye to observe. He discovered that this position was the blind spot of most of the light mirrors. Although Chu Tian could use his divine sense to move the light mirrors, as long as Chu Xinghe's speed was fast enough, he could definitely kill him before Chu Tian could. 10,000 flood dragons enter the body. One with the sword. Dozens of swords turned into golden light and drilled into Chu Xinghe's body. At this moment, Chu Xinghe had become one with the sword. He was the sword, and the sword was him. All the energy was concentrated on his body. He formed a sword art with both hands and a huge sword light soared into the sky from his right hand. Boom! A huge hole appeared in the ceiling. Soul sword technique. Cutting heaven style. The power of this sword was too terrifying. Chu Xinghe was indeed worthy of being a genius of the Chu family. He had actually combined the Imperial Sword transformation into Flood Dragon Sword technique with the Chu family's inherited Soul Sword technique. First, he used the strongest move of the Imperial Sword technique to become one with the sword. Then, he used his body as a sword and used the Cutting Heaven style. The Cutting Heaven style was the strongest move of the Soul Sword technique. Chu Xinghe himself already had the strength to challenge those above him. Not to mention that he was using it without holding back. The might of this sword was hard to imagine. Even if he was facing a sixth awakened soul layer cultivator, he would still have a chance of killing them with a single slash. Even a true soul realm expert would be heavily injured if they were to block this attack. This was Chu Xinghe, the #1 genius of Central State City. The sword chi that soared into the sky was several dozen feet long. Before it even came down, the pressure already made it so that Chu Tian could not stand straight. The surrounding light mirrors all changed directions and could not be controlled by Chu Tian at all. Hung. The sword chi was like a 10,000-foot-long flood as it flew out. There was only a deep sword mark left behind. The center of the main hall was several dozen feet long. The ancient array that was 10 times harder than iron was actually split apart, and the main mirror that was protected by the mysterious power was also shattered. The entire light mirror array lost its color. This slash had actually destroyed the array. How could Chu Tian's mortal body have a complete corpse? It seemed like the difference in strength between the two sides was too large. The one who would be defeated in the end would still be Chu Tian. Chu Xinghe's face turned pale. Looking at the destroyed main hall in front of him, that cold-as-ice face finally revealed a cold smile of ridicule. Did I overestimate him in the end? To be able to force me to use my trump card against this kind of person? I've made him lose too beautifully. But this was Chu Xinghe's style. Chu Xinghe had a cold and overbearing personality. Since Chu Tian thought that he could defeat him with a single light mirror array, then Chu Xinghe would destroy him along with the array. The image of his irresistible strength was firmly planted in the depths of Chu Tian's heart. It would become a hard mountain to cross on his cultivation path, a heart demon that he could never overcome. This cultivation path would be hard to take even a single step forward. Chu Xinghe's goal would be achieved. Chu Xinghe released the man and sword union technique and put the sword back into the sheath. Suddenly, he felt a strange sharp energy gathering behind him. This is bad. The sword that had been sheathed once again flew into the sky. But before he could use his sword art, a beautiful burning sword glow pierced through Chu Xinghe's chest and came out from his back. Netherworld Raging Flame Slash. Chu Xinghe revealed a look of shock. The young man was wearing a simple robe, and there was not a single wound on his body. He was standing in front of him completely unharmed. On that young face, there was a cold smile of ridicule. The burning sword in his hand had pierced through his body and the surging netherworld flames were being poured into his limbs. No. Impossible. Chu Xinghe did not believe it no matter what. How could Chu Tian have survived? That was an attack that even a peak illustrious soul realm expert would find hard to block. How could Chu Tian not be injured at all? The thing that Chu Xinghe could not accept the most was that his sword could not kill Chu Tian, but rather he had been killed by Chu Tian's sword. I am a man of my word. I said that I would personally kill you, so I will personally kill you. Chu Tian emphasized the word personally. This was very harsh on Chu Xinghe's ears. Whether you believe it or not, you have already lost. The so-called heavenly sword young master is just a joke. When the raging flame slash stabbed into Chu Xinghe did not have the ability to resist at all because Chu Xinghe had released all his spirit energy in that full-strength slash. When his meridians were not filled with spirit energy, he was suddenly stabbed by this wild slash, and the netherworld ghost flame filled his body. That sharp netherworld sword had pierced through his heart. Even with Chu Xinghe's strength, there was nothing he could do. Chu Tian waved his right hand, and the netherworld sword returned to its sheath. Leaving behind a simple robe fluttering in the wind, he walked towards the giant door without even looking back. A mass of gray fog appeared and the little white fox appeared on his shoulder. This fox had a taunting smile as it looked at Chu Xinghe and even made a face at him. Finally, Chu Tian walked through the door. The giant door to the treasure room slowly closed, and then disappeared from the main hall. No! Chu Xinghe gave a loud roar and the netherworld flame came out of his body in the next second, instantly swallowing Chu Xinghe's body. Then the jade token on his chest released a strong light, and a strong force sent him out of the trial tower. Lost. The heavenly sword young master had lost. Central State's number 1 Chu Xinghe had lost. No matter how he thought about it, he could not understand how Chu Tian did it. There had never been a person that could make him feel this kind of incomparable shame and anger, as well as a trembling from his soul. Chapter 186. Central State City, Ancient Ruins, next to the Central State Trial Tower. The sky gradually darkened, and the stars lit up the night sky. The earth was silent, and the white jade trial tower silently stood in the ruins. It seemed like it had remained the same for thousands of years, not changing at all. The 4 great families had already set up 4 camps around the Central State Tower. The guards of the various families were tightly guarding the area. A tense and apprehensive atmosphere filled the air above the camp. In this era where there was no new and old, the ancient ruins were everywhere. Among the countless hidden treasures, the trial tower was the least dangerous. It was not like the 10,000 corpse ancient tomb where one's cultivation base was sealed, and it was not as dangerous as the other forbidden secret realms. So the death rate of the participants was very low. At least in the several hundred years since the founding of Central State City, there had never been a precedent of someone dying in the trial tower. Although it was like this, it did not mean that the trial tower was completely safe. The main reason for the low mortality rate in the Tower of Trial was that the trial's laws protected the trial taker. When a trial taker received a certain amount of damage in the Tower of Trial, the trial taker would automatically remove the damage and teleport them out of the Tower of Trial. Thus, to a large extent, the trial taker's life was guaranteed. What was calculated here was instant fatal damage. What if the accumulated damage caused the participant to be seriously injured, but it did not reach the death rate of the trial law? The situation would be different. Even if the participant was eliminated, they would still be in a seriously injured state. Or would the trial law make a mistake? What if the damage was lethal and they didn't have time to react? Would the trial taker die as a result? So even if there was no direct death, there had been 1 or 2 serious injuries that had been sent out of the trial tower. In the end, the injuries had left behind side effects, causing one's cultivation base to drop. The gains did not make up for the losses. The 4 great families did not dare slack off for even a second. The elites of the families were stationed around the Central State Tower, and they had prepared medicine masters and healers. If something happened to their children in the trial tower, they would be able to react as soon as possible. Xiong Wuji was wearing a suit of general armor as he guarded the ruins. His job was to maintain order. The 4 great families did not get along, so if there was any conflict, the military would intervene. Xiong Wuji revealed a hint of a smile. This year's trial taker's strength is polarized, but after more than 10 hours, not a single one has been eliminated. This is really unexpected. Yeah. A deputy general said strangely, if it was in the past, I'm afraid more than half of them would have been eliminated. The disparity in strength between the trial takers this year was too great. The 4 people led by Chu Xinghe were all illustrious Soul Realm experts. Chu Tian, Nangong Yun Shao, and the others were all at the second awakened soul layer. Chu Xinghe was the most outstanding among them. Even if the others joined forces, they might not be able to defeat him. However, due to the existence of the powerful Chu Xinghe, the difficulty of the trial would be greatly increased, and it would be stricter than before. No matter how quick-witted Chu Tian was, under such a harsh trial environment, he should have been eliminated, right? The 4 great clans were also very confused, especially the Chu, Luo, and Yi families. What was going on? They actually let that fellow Chu Tian stay in the trial tower for this long? Didn't they already tell them to cripple Chu Tian and throw him out as soon as they entered the tower? Yun Tianhe, Chen Bingyu, and the others were all a bit nervous. Yun Tianhe had made an optimistic estimate. For a burden like Yun Xiao, it would be good if he could survive for 4-5 hours. If Yun Yao was stable, she would be able to last 15 to 20 hours. As for Chu Tian, this brat had too many variables, so it was hard to evaluate him. It had already been over 10 hours. Why hadn't a single person come out? Could something have happened? Yun Tianhe's heart was a bit anxious. The Yun family was under a lot of pressure this time. Even if Yun Yao had the Thunder Spirit bead to increase her strength, if the Chu, Luo, and Yi young masters worked together, Yun Yao would not be able to fight back. Not to mention that waste Yun Xiao. Chen Bingyu also tightly knit her brows. She was not only Chu Tian's follower, she was also Chu Tian's worshipper. Moreover, Chu Tian was her life-saving straw. Ka. Chen Bingyu's fists tightened, and a faint killing intent began to fill the air. If the Chu, Luo, and Yi families dared to do anything to Chu Tian, she would not let these fellows go. Everyone had their own thoughts as another 2 hours passed. The trial tower flashed with light and began to slightly shake. Someone's coming out. Everyone was filled with excitement. Who could it be? The top of the Central State Tower released a beam of light, and several ancient runes appeared at the top of the tower. It was an ancient number, 188 points. 188 points. This kind of result was already considered a very, very good result. A white-robed youth was sent flying out of the door and slammed into the ground. The Yin family members revealed looks of joy. Seeing a ghost. Wasn't this their family's young master Yin Xiao? Everyone else was stunned. The playboy Yin Xiao, who had been treated as a waste, had actually obtained 188 points? What was going on? He must have cheated. The Yin family members were filled with excitement. This was truly a pleasant surprise. They could finally hold their heads up high. Yin Xiao did not have any problems. He had been sent flying out of the trial space and did not suffer any torture. He stood up and began to curse. Fuck. Those monsters are too abnormal. They actually tried to sneak attack father. I don't accept this. I don't accept this. Yin Tianhe quickly asked, what is the situation in the trial tower right now? Boss, old sister, and elder sister are all together. When I came out, they should have been fine. But they are being held back by a group of terrifying demons, and no matter what kind of attack they use, the situation is not good. Yin Tianhe tightly knit his brows. The three great families were secretly delighted. It would be best if they were all eliminated at once. Yin Xiao took out the things he had exchanged and gave them to his grandfather. My harvest in the trial tower is very large. These are all things I exchanged for with points, and there are several martial arts suitable for the Yin family. For example, this wild thunder collapse can instantly kill most of our family's martial arts, and this thunder shadow step is a top-quality movement technique. 4-5 thunder attributed cultivation techniques. 3 half-step Saint Great Herbs. 2 bottles of pills that could increase one's cultivation. The things that Yin Xiao brought out from the trial tower were not ordinary. They were all top-quality items. It was enough to increase the Yin family's strength by a large amount. The Chu, Luo, and Yi families all revealed looks of jealousy. Yin Xiao, that waste, had obtained such a good result. Then Yin Yao's score would be even higher. The Yin family had 2 people participating in the trial. They had truly picked up a large bargain. Good. Good. Yin Tianhe's old chest was filled with joy. This good-for-nothing grandson of his had finally made a contribution to the family. From now on, no one would dare laugh at him behind his back. You've done well. Go and rest. In the end, in less than a quarter of an hour, the central state tower shook again, and Lin Mu and Feng Han were kicked out. One had 195 points. One had 190 points. Everyone's eyes turned red. Damn, this is really strange. These 2 mercenaries did not have any background. They did not have any support. They only obtained the trial qualifications because of luck. They never thought that these 2 fellows would not only obtain the trial qualifications, they would also obtain such a high score. It would be more than enough to exchange for a sacred herb. These 2 fellows had completely turned over. The most angry ones were the Chu, Luo, and Yi families. The spots on these people were originally theirs. If these pieces of trash could obtain such a high score, how could the geniuses of the Chu, Luo, and Yi families' results be low? Yin Zhao's face was filled with wonder. You guys were also killed? Lin Mu and Feng Han gave a sigh. That demon was too strong. We couldn't do anything. We were killed when we weren't careful. Yin Tianhe's heart sank. Although he did not know what had happened in the trial tower, it was not hard to see from their expressions that Chu Tian had fallen into a very serious situation. There were several hundred of them. Physical attacks and energy attacks were ineffective. Their destructive might could easily tear through an illustrious Soul Realm expert's defenses. Under the attacks of these terrifying monsters, how could they not be eliminated? The central state tower shook again. 276 points. Everyone was in an uproar. This high score? It had almost broken the highest record in Central State City. The one who was sent out this time was Feng Kai-dai. She also had a face filled with regret, but she was even more depressed. This was because Feng Kai-dai was different from the other 3. Chu Tian had already found a way to deal with the demons, but when Feng Kai-dai used the light mirror, she had accidentally rebounded and killed herself. How could she not be depressed? Feng Kai-dai was depressed, but before she was eliminated, she had killed quite a few demons, so her score was higher than the other 3 by a large amount. Because of this experience, there were many pleasant surprises. Because the harvest far surpassed their expectations. Each one is better than the last. The 4 great families felt their blood boil. With this speed and trend, wouldn't the people that came out later have higher scores? Yin Tianhe asked about it and couldn't help slapping the table. Good brat, he really is something. He was actually able to find the weakness of these demons at this critical moment. It seems like they still have hope. The Yin family had 2 challengers. Just Yin Xiao alone had brought back several precious thunder-attributed cultivation techniques, and several half-step saint-grade herbs for the Yin family. Then how would Yin Yao perform? 1 hour. Hong hong. The light from the trial tower filled the sky and 2 numbers appeared. 318 points. 331 points. Nangong Yin and Yin Yao were sent out. Everyone was completely shocked. It broke past 300. It actually broke past 300. The Yin family was filled with excitement. A new record. A new record had been broken. Yin Yao had obtained a terrifying score of 331 points. The highest score in the history of Central State City was less than 300 points. Yin Yao had completely broken the Central State record for several hundred years. This was truly a miraculous result. Nangong Yin exchanged for a high-quality level 2 sacred herb, 10,000-year-old phoenix ginseng. This medicine could help her break through to the illustrious soul realm in the future. She also exchanged for a large amount of precious cultivation techniques and equipment. Her harvest could be considered very rich. Yin Yao also exchanged for a good sacred herb to help her break through to the 5th awakened soul layer in the future. She also exchanged for a few recipes, ancient books, and cultivation techniques to contribute to the family. Who said the Yin family was weak? The Yin family was about to counterattack. When the Yin family was cheering, the Chu, Luo, and Yi families all had gloomy expressions. Logically speaking, it was impossible for the challengers to obtain such a high score. Obtaining over 100 points was already a good result, so these people must have had a fortuitous encounter in the trial space. Damn it! How could it be like this? At this time, Nangong Yun and Yin Yao had angry expressions on their faces. Chu Xinghe is a despicable person. He actually launched a sneak attack on us. Everyone was stunned. Yin Tianhe quickly asked, "What happened?" Yin Yao did not even have time to speak before Nangong Yin angrily shouted. Chu Xinghe took advantage of us being unprepared and suddenly launched a sneak attack on us. We were both killed by Chu Xinghe. Otherwise we would have obtained more points. Yin Yao also had an angry expression. This method was too despicable. It was fine if they were defeated in a direct confrontation, but that bastard Chu Xinghe used a sneak attack on them. When Yin Tianhe heard this, he revealed a shocked expression. "You're saying that Chu Tian is still inside. Moreover, he is fighting against Chu Xinghe, Luo Xianglong, and Yi Tianlang by himself? Boss has a protective talisman that can block one attack, so Chu Xinghe's sneak attack shouldn't have been able to kill him." In an instant, Yin Tianhe's face turned white. Now it was the Chu Luo and Yi families' turn to reveal a fiendish smile. If Chu Tian fought against the 3 of them by himself, even if one used their but to think, they would know what would happen. Fom Kai Dai Yin Xiao and the others' expressions all changed. Yi Tianlang and Luo Xianglong did not just want to kill Chu Tian. They wanted to cripple Chu Tian to vent their hatred. This is bad. Chu Tian was in danger. Chapter 187. Yin Yao had been instantly taken care of. Chu Tian was alone. How could he fight against the strong and overbearing 3 young masters? The weakest among them was Yi Tianlang, but he had already reached the 4th awakened soul layer, and had been in the 4th awakened soul layer for over a year. Adding in the fact that his family's monster wolf transformation had been cultivated to the large success realm. He also had the secret skills of the Ye family, and he had fought with Yi Wudao for many years, so he had rich battle experience. His attack power, explosive power, and speed were all at a level that normal illustrious soul realm experts would find hard to fight. So what if Chu Tian won by luck in South Sky City? Everyone knew that he did not rely on his own strength, but rather he had borrowed the power of the Yin corpses and the array. If he really fought with Yi Tianlang, with Chu Tian's cultivation base, even if he had 10 lives, it would not be enough to kill him. Not to mention Luo Xianglong, who had the strength of a dragon and tiger, as well as the dazzling, undefeatable Chu Xinghe. Yin Tianhe's face turned livid and Chen Bingyu's face was covered in ice. The Chu Luo and Yi families revealed looks of joy. Chu Tian. Ah, Chu Tian, you also had a day like this? Now that you've fallen into our hands, even if you don't die, you'll still be crippled and thrown out. Meng Yingying and Meng Qinggu were in the Yin family's camp. When they heard this news, they were shocked. What should they do? Chu Tian was in big trouble this time. A Ye family elder walked in front of the two of them. Once Chu Tian is crippled, your backing will fall. Do you think the Yin family will continue to fight against the three great families for you too? Yin Tianhe angrily said. What do you want to do? Offending the three great families at the same time, it's impossible to escape unscathed. The Ye family elder coldly smiled at the two of them. But this was all done by Chu Tian, so we can be merciful and give you two sisters a path to live. Now hand over the miracle commerce to us three families, and we'll let you two sisters live. Being servants is already a kindness. This is too much. Yun Tianhe gave a loud roar and the Ye family elder was sent flying. This old man is here, it's not your turn to be arrogant. Meng Qinggu and her sister were furious. Too abominable. Chu Tian hadn't come out yet, and these fellows were in a hurry to swallow up miracle commerce. This Ye family elder had the support of the three great families, so he was not afraid of Yun Tianhe. The three young masters have a conflict with Chu Tian in the central state tower, so what if they kill or cripple Chu Tian? Shen Fengho couldn't stop it. After this, no matter how angry Yun Tianhe was, or how dissatisfied the Divine Wind Marquis was, the Divine Wind Marquis couldn't just pull out the three great families, right? The two of you think carefully. The Yin family can't protect you at all. Without Chu Tian's miracle commerce, what are you? Central State's four great families were the cornerstones of Central State City. The entire Central State County, from the main city to the small villages, were all influenced by the four great families. These several hundred-year-old families, if one of them fell, it would cause a large wave, not to mention three of them. If the three young masters crippled Chu Tian in the trial tower, would Shen Fengho be able to kill the three great families in a fit of rage? The three great families already had victory in their hands. As for whether Chu Xinghe's group of three could take care of Chu Tian, did they even need to think about this question? Offending them. This ending was already letting him off too easily. Who would have thought that at this moment, the central state tower would begin to tremble? The three great families raised their heads in anticipation. Was Chu Tian about to be thrown out? This was a moment of pride, so everyone opened their eyes wide to watch. A beam of light shot out from the top of the tower. Several numbers appeared in the night sky. 236 points. Ha, it's only 236 points. A member of the Ye family deliberately shouted out. The Yin family's waist has only obtained 188 points. The others also began to ridicule him. Yin Xiao was so angry that his teeth itched, but he had no other choice. Actually, this result was a very eye-catching result in the past. This time's results were very normal. It could not even compare to Nangong Yun's. While the people from the three great families were still laughing. At this time, a person in a sorry state was suddenly thrown out of the tower and slammed into the ground. When everyone saw this person, they all stared at him like they had seen a ghost. All the ridiculing laughter was like a duck being grabbed by the neck, instantly silencing them. It wasn't Chu Tian? This. Wasn't this Yi Tianlang? This young man looked to be around 24 or 25 years old, wearing a moon-white robe. He had a tall stature and a devilishly handsome face, but his face was filled with anger as he roared out into the sky. Little brat Chu Tian. We can't live under the same sky. It really was Yi Tianlang. The people from the Ye family that had been laughing at Chu Tian's low points almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Yin Xiao began to loudly laugh as he shamelessly said, Aya, isn't this Prince Tianlang? How could the famous Prince Tianlang only have this low points? It seems like brother spends his days drinking and gambling, spending his days in brothels. He isn't any worse than Prince Tianlang. The Yin family broke out in laughter. The three great families were completely stunned. There were only the three young masters and Chu Tian left in the central state tower. Why hadn't Chu Tian been kicked out? And instead Yi Tianlang was kicked out. Yi Wudao's scarred face twitched like a centipede as he asked in a deep voice, What is going on here? Yi Tianlang's pale face turned red. In front of this many people, he couldn't say that he had been defeated by Chu Tian. Yi Wudao had lost all his face and was filled with rage. Quickly say it. It's Chu Tian. Yi Tianlang threw caution to the wind. That despicable and sinister fellow, he sneak attacked me. Everyone was in an uproar. What was going on here? Ha, this is the funniest joke I've ever heard. Not to mention whether Chu Tian sneak attacked you or not. Even if he did, so what? Nan Gongyun said in a sarcastic voice. Could it be that Chu Xinghe sneak attacking us is honorable and Chu Tian sneak attacking you is despicable and sinister? What a good mouth, truly worthy of being a stray dog, young master. I think you only know how to bark. Meng Yingying's morale was greatly boosted as she immediately said, That's right. The stray dog young master only knows how to bark and bite people. With just you people, you want to swallow up Chu Tian's miracle commerce? In your dreams. Yi Wudao and his son were filled with rage. The two of them did not even have time to react before the central state tower began to cheer, and a string of numbers floated out. 257 points. Luo Xianglong's tall and sturdy body was sent flying and he fell to the ground, falling flat on his face. This time it was the Luo family's turn to vomit blood. What was going on? It was fine if Prince Tianlang was eliminated. But now even the Dragon Tiger young master had come out? But, damn. Luo Xianglong faced the strange gazes of everyone and felt ashamed and angry at the same time. Chu Tian sneak attacked me. The Yin family and the spectators all broke out in laughter. What a good sneak attack. In front of the three young masters, Chu Tian first sneak attacked Yi Tianlang, and then Luo Xianglong. Did the three young masters eat shit? Even a sneak attack in front of them was still a sneak attack. Everyone in the Luo family was furious. Originally, the hatred between the Luo family and Chu Tian was the lightest. Although 2 elders and several deacons had been killed, they were only 2 ordinary elders, and ordinary deacons were even more insignificant. Until the Central State Great Games, Chu Tian had beaten Luo Jinshi half to death, causing the Luo family to lose a trial spot. Only then did they begin to hold a grudge against Chu Tian. In the end, not only had Chu Tian crippled Luo Jinshi, he had also thrown Luo Xianglong out of the trial tower, shaming the entire Luo family. This was a great shame. The Luo family members' eyes turned red as they gritted their teeth. They had to tear that fellow Chu Tian to pieces. The Ye family and the Luo family were all united against a common enemy. The Chu family was still calm and indifferent. Luo Xianglong and Yi Tianlang were only second-class people. The Chu family did not care about the so-called 4 young masters. How could 3 mediocre people compare to the divine flood dragon? There was only one genius in Central State City. That was Chu Xinghe. Whether it was mentality, talent, luck, or courage, Chu Xinghe was the best of the best. He had cultivated the Chu family's soul sword secret art to perfection, and had even reached the large success realm in the ancient sword cultivation technique, Imperial Flood Dragon Transformation Secret Art. Chu Xinghe alone was comparable to the other 3 young masters. So when they saw Yi Tianlang being eliminated and Luo Xianglong being eliminated, the Chu family did not panic at all. This was because the entire Chu family believed that Chu Xinghe was unrivaled in the younger generation. Chu Xinghe had been successful ever since he became famous. There were many rogue cultivators and geniuses that were shocked by his brilliance. In the end, they willingly bowed to Chu Xinghe and worked for him. It was impossible for such a powerful man to lose. This was the only person in Central State City that could become a superstar like Shen Fenghe. Luo Xianglong was eliminated, and Yi Tianlang was eliminated? The Chu family was not angry, rather they were secretly happy. After this battle, the gap between the families would be pulled apart. With Chu Xinghe's fortuitous encounter in the trial tower, the other 3 young masters would not be able to catch up. Around half an hour passed. Hong hong. The central state tower began to shake and a beam of light shot into the sky, revealing a number, 400 points. It had broken 400 points. It was exactly 400 points. Everyone cried out in shock. Yin Yao's record had not even been set for 2 hours, and it had already been broken by an even higher record. Was this Chu Tian's record? This was quite reasonable. Although many people couldn't deny it, Chu Tian still had some skills after all. Who would have thought that under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, A bleak figure slowly walked out from the tower. A blue robe, a golden sword, a white jade crown, a tall stature, and a powerful aura, just like a treasure sword. However, this treasured sword that was radiating a sharp aura had lost its usual sharp and cold aura. Instead, it looked like it had rusted. It was Chu Xinghe. The crowd was dead silent. Why was it Chu Xinghe who walked out? No one could have imagined this kind of result. The Chu family's minds went blank because this was too unbelievable for them. Chu Xinghe was a legend of the Chu family. When they saw a legend being destroyed, how could they not be shocked? Chu Shanhe was stunned for a few seconds. Xinghe, what's wrong with you? Chu Xinghe's expression was not right. He stopped moving and his eyes did not have the usual arrogance, only a blank and empty look. When he looked over everyone, he suddenly revealed a smile. I've lost. After saying this, he spat out a large mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. Quickly save him. The Chu family was shocked. They all surrounded Chu Xinghe and quickly carried him down. At this time, Chu Xinghe had already lost consciousness, falling into a coma. It was clear that when Chu Xinghe walked out, he was already seriously injured and could only force himself to walk here. This is bad. A senior elder took Chu Xinghe's pulse and his expression changed as he said, the young master's meridians are being burned by the netherworld flame. They are all showing signs of withering. I'm afraid his cultivation will be greatly reduced. The Chu family were all paralyzed. This was not because of Chu Xinghe's injuries. It was because this kind of injury could only be caused by a single person in Central State City. That was Chu Tian's netherworld flame sword art. In an instant, the last of the bubbles had burst. The Chu family had no choice but to face a cruel reality. The proud, complacent, and limitless leader of the four young masters had actually been defeated by Chu Tian's hands. Chu Tian hasn't been eliminated, but the three young masters have been eliminated? Chu Xinghe has never been defeated before. How did he do it? Yin Tianhe, Chen Bingyu, Xiong Wuji and all the spectators were deeply shocked by this result. No matter the cost. We must kill him. We must kill him. The hatred of the three great clans surged out like an avalanche. They had clearly realized that they had provoked a monster. This monster was not strong at the moment, but once he was allowed to grow, the three great clans would no longer have a place to stand in the central plains. In the distance, on a large tree, Shen Fengho's body was covered in a black cloak. He never thought this kind of ending would happen. The last person to survive was Chu Tian's trivial second awakened soul layer cultivator? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But people couldn't help but believe it. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.